Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt, and I'm chairing today's panel. Joining me on the panel are Gail Anderson and Brian Carlin, both joining us via Zoom. Our assessor today is Matthew Harling, and our administrative personnel is Phoebe Graywood. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed, with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 through 9 on our docket today. Ms. Graywood, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Mr. Harling, please state your full name.
Matthew Harling.
Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Neufeld, state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to get some little bit of admin business out of the way, I'm advised that there's a hearing scheduled in this room for 1 o'clock this afternoon, which means our docket needs to be completed prior to then. So if we could just be mindful of time and presentations, and that would be appreciated very much. So first of all, any other preliminary issues that we need to discuss?
I don't believe so. On my end, I guess no. So
No.
Okay. Mr. Neufeld, I noted that for items 1, 2, and 8, your submissions, your evidence was submitted late. Do you have an explanation for the lateness of the submission?
1, 2, and 8. And sorry, that's okay. I imagine it was I didn't do the submissions, but I imagine we just didn't meet the 4:30 deadline of that date. It was probably past 4:30.
Thank you. Given the lateness of the submissions, we're just going to go into camera very quickly, and the panel will deliberate as to whether we will accept the late submissions, the written evidence. If we do not accept them, you can still present your report verbally. But we just need a few minutes in camera to make that decision first. Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Mr. Neufeld, we have agreed to accept your late evidence. So then with that, we will proceed with item number 1. And again, I would remind the assessor and the applicant to please try to keep your presentations on point, and we'll get through the docket without an issue today. Okay, item number 1, Mr. Harling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the file number is 24-315. The roll number is 141-000-18300. The address is 125 Meridian Drive, and the owner is number company 101-60741 Manitoba Limited. The 2025 roll year, based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023, is assessed at $5,515,000. I do have a recommendation I'd like to actually present for this particular property. And before I do the recommendation, I would just maybe if the board give me a few minutes, just kind of give some context of why the recommendation is being put forth. So, so just going through my brief, but yeah, so so I can just, if you want to go straight to, let's go to page 6 of my brief. So you can just see here the subject property here. It's a building here, so you can kind of see on page 6 at the top and the bottom. This is the building we're currently talking about today. Now, I was informed on the weekend from Mr. Neufeld that the building actually has been demolished because there was a permit taken out for demolition. And yes, so the building actually has been demolished. So it's just basically land there now. So essentially, obviously, we're looking at the current physical conditions. So obviously, being just on land, that's a factor that we're taking into account now. So so essentially, the land area, if you actually look on page 1 of my brief, the land area is roughly 195,810 square feet. Another issue I was informed was the property doesn't have a sewer access or sewer hookup. So that was another factor that was taken into account into the recommendation as well. So as I indicated, yeah, so the initial value was $5,515,000 based on the fact that there was a building, but since the building has been demolished this past weekend, making a recommendation just based on the land and the influence I mentioned. So the recommendation I'm putting forth is to reduce the value to $824,000. And that's based on using a land rate of roughly $4.21 a square foot, or roughly $183,307 per acre. So that is the recommendation I'm putting forth. Thank you.
Okay, if I can just repeat that.
Oh, apologies. So which part? Everything? Or?
No, I'll repeat it back to you.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay, you're making a recommendation to reduce to $824,000. That's based on land value only. With an area of 195,810 square feet at $4.21 per square foot.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, do you accept the recommendation?
No, and Mr. Harling and I have spoken on the matter already. There was an additional factor that came up, and he's aware of it. So, but we will make the hearing shorter, just to deal on that one factor on the servicing side of it. Certainly the number would be quite fair if the land was serviceable, but like I said, there was a kind of a developing issue in the last few weeks.
Okay, so before we begin with your information, then, do you have questions for Mr. Harling on the recommendation?
Yes, just confirm that you have checked the city's plans, registry, whatever, and there is no sewer to the site.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And did you have a chance to speak to anyone at property and planning about the potential to have sewer attached?
No, unfortunately, I did not have time to do that.
Okay. And I'm not critical at all. I just want to confirm you haven't put any land sales in your report at all, because this came up later, right?
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, do you have questions on the recommendation?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. And neither do I. So, Mr. Neufeld, if you can discuss that one point that you were talking about?
Yes, and I have there's the main the evidence. Oh, incidentally, by the way, I was incorrect when I said we were a few minutes late. We were on time. I found the tracking, and the Board of Revision has a maximum capacity on their inbox, and the files you spoke of exceeded that capacity. Apparently, they don't take anything over 10 megabyte.
Okay,
So I don't mind being a little bit guilty, but this time we weren't.
okay, thank you.
Okay, on the primary document, we had proceeded on the basis of land only, and as you can see, we had a different number in mind than the assessor, and this was based on an inspection we had done in the building, and the information and the pictures taken. The building was built without well, permits were never closed, connections weren't made, no occupancy permit ever issued, and it failed inspection. And the current owner actually bought it on a bankruptcy foreclosure on a land value only. And I just want to see if I put anything documents in the primary evidence. I think no. So is it possible to just move into my rebuttal information?
Well, so you're saying that your primary submission is not,
Well, it's
I mean, there's really nothing to rebut.
well, there is on the recommendation, the verbal. Mr. Harling and I had a really good discussion on this, and he's aware. I was aware what he was going to do, and he was very fair. And there came after that something else on the concept of the land value, which I knew he was going to present. So I'm rebutting his verbal evidence.
Okay, so let's finish dealing with your main evidence then. Are you?
No, that's it. That's it. We had originally just looked at it for land value, and we put a value of 100,000 per acre on it for
Okay.
land value.
Okay.
And that's on page 1 and 2. Very simple.
Okay. Mr. Harling, do you have questions on, I know this is just formality. Mr. Neufeld wants to get to his rebuttal, but do you have questions on that?
No, I'm good. I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Anderson,
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Carlin.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, we've dispensed with your main evidence, Mr. Neufeld.
Okay,
If you'd like to present your rebuttal then.
yes. It's called rebuttal and revised value.
Got it?
And again, I apologize. They don't like to change values, but this was information only became available. We have a number of properties in the same boat. And firstly, we've also made the request shown on page 2 for reconsideration for previous years under a different part of the act. Nothing you have to worry about. I just wanted to let you know that that has been done on this property, and the other one's impacted by it. On the page, oh, I guess there's no page markings here. The 4th page is the caveat that the city of Winnipeg put on the property, dating back to 2023. And you'll note the caveat is the building or structure does not comply with an enactment that the city is authorized or required to enforce, namely the bylaw. So this is the registration for the failure on the inspection. And while this is mostly for information at this particular stage, and it just shows the details of all the problems that were with the building, and which we're all aware of. And I think the assessors dealt with that part of the issue. But moving on to page, okay, this is page 13, the City of Winnipeg bylaw 119/2020. This is passed on May 26th, 2022. And this is the long-range planning document for the city. And on the following page is servicing. And what it says there is the second paragraph. However, given the context of the various servicing standards available throughout Winnipeg, there are exceptions to new developments being supported by a full range of municipal services. These exceptions, detailed in the following policies, can generally be described as a replacement or expansion of permitted use, changing one use to another permitted use, and minor infill subdivisions. What this is saying is the city is not guaranteeing servicing anymore for development. And it's not just this property that's affected. There are, so far we found at least 6 properties where the same issue has come up. And the city just does not have capacity. And I was going to give you some examples of them and what was done. And I am not comparing assessments. I am discussing how the city policy reacted to the idea of not having servicing available any longer. And by the way, this property would be deemed a new development where servicing is not guaranteed. The picture of the land on the 15th page this is on Dugald. This is owned by Terracon, and their assessment was changed to $30,000 per acre. This is M3 zoned land, and because it can't be serviced any longer, it's not capable of being serviced. They never tried to get servicing, but well, they have tried to get servicing, but it hasn't had it in the past. So it's new development in a St. Boniface Industrial Park. There's not servicing available for it. The next property is 3270 Pembina Highway, and this is one we just finished dealing with at the Board of Revision. That number that's on there, 50,000 an acre, is what the board determined this year. And subsequent to that, the city has agreed to back it up till the date of the notice. So this is what's been happening. Acknowledgement by the city that there's an issue, and we had tried to discuss this with Mr. Harling's supervisor, and she was not available, and that's no fault, no blame there. This is all happening in the last week, and we're all busy. But 3270 Pembina, on October 2019, they had a letter from the city saying, yeah, it looks like we have services. It says does not apply a commitment or decision, but that they're saying that preliminary analysis is that they believe it can be serviced. This particular property on June 20th, 23 got an email from the CAO of the city saying we no longer have servicing for your site. Now these are all in different parts of the city as well. So appreciate that this is not a location factor with distribution to one specific site. This is the entire city. So they had their and it's all sewer. They had their approval rejected on the basis of not having a sewer. The next one is in the land immediately north of Saskatchewan Avenue. It's now designated Centerport zoning, and there's 2 lots here, and the first lot is 66 acres. That was changed to 1,680,000, which I believe is around 27,000 per acre, being no sewer, no water, and this value incidentally came from the expropriation values that were on the property next door to it, which was a matter that I was dealing with. I don't know if Most people don't understand, realize I'm an accredited appraiser, and I do the tax appeal bills, but I also do appraisal work in appearing as expert witness in expropriation matters. So this number came from that, and the city kept it at that number because the argument at the time was that they do not have water and sewer, and there is no timetable for it. The next one is 1270 Sturgeon Road, and it is the same issue again. We have a value of about 27,000 per acre, which was this is and I might be wrong here, but I believe this is a Qualico property, and I did speak to a person at Qualico about the issue we're facing today, as I also spoke to a Terracon person, and I got confirmation that the city was amenable to dealing with the values on these value levels. These weren't, these were uncontested recommendations. The extra issue on this particular property is that in 2016, Qualico offered to purchase the land, and I was working for the owner. So we had an offer on the table of $50,000 an acre in 2016, I think it was, for the land as a long-term hold. So we're not saying the land doesn't have value. What we're saying is that you don't know when it's going to happen, so you have to do a hold. So this is one of the primary indications of land values in the area that I was aware of that came about on this land that couldn't be serviced on the Winnipeg side of Centerport from the existing connections that are south of Saskatchewan that needed to be extended north of Saskatchewan. Strangely enough, the lands in the Rosser portion of it have been able to receive servicing because they come from a different source. And water is not the issue, it's sewer. Another one in the neighborhood just beside it, you can see it's another 74-acre parcel that's again coming in at a little over 20,000 an acre. Again, I'm not comparing assessments, but this is an area that has been dealt with already. Unusual properties that are being impacted by the city being unable to service land that most developers thought was serviceable. And I know the owner of this property believed he could have services, but he does not have sewer. He will have to go through an approval process, and the complete communities, he may not even get that far. If water and waste determine they can't do it, it won't even be an appealable item. There are other properties, 677 St. Mary's, no, St. Anne's. We have another situation there where it was a condominium development that was approved 15 years ago in 3 phases. They're now at phase 3, and the city says we no longer have services for you. You cannot develop phase 3 of your condo, even though it was approved. So I mean, we've had some more rapid expansion in, communities that have come up. Waverly West was approved for servicing for their entire site. So the issue here isn't that the services aren't physically available right now, but they've been allocated already. And that's what it's all based on. And another factor on servicing is that the requirement for an industrial building is higher than a house, which is puzzling because, this particular building might have had a few toilets that got flushed every day. That's the limit of what they do. Whereas a house is going washer and dishwasher, showers, baths, watering the lawn, etc. Use far more water, but it's a question of capacity. Code says you need a certain capacity to these properties, and the city can't deliver that potential capacity. And as we've been saying, and the last one on 3270 Pembina, which was we worked out with the city, was we would be quite happy to accept an increase in value once servicing is approved. But until it is, it has to be treated as a long-term hold at a marginal rate of value. And upon approval of services, or the city saying we now can service you, then Mr. Harling's recommendation would be wonderful.
Okay.
We don't, but the site doesn't have that. And that's essentially where we're at. So what we're asking for, and I know it looks like I'm comparing assessments, but I'm not. What I'm comparing is policy. The other properties got a policy for industrial land, future use industrial land, $30,000 per acre until such time as they can be serviced. And I think it's a question of equity. That's the best way to approach this property. I know the owner wants to go ahead and try to develop, so there will be attempts to determine if he can be serviced. And like I said, gladly, if the answer is yes, then they should change the assessment upwards. But until that time, it should be at 30,000 acre.
And so your number, Mr. Neufeld, is $135,000?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harling, do you have questions on the rebuttal?
You know what? No, I think I'll be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. I have no questions either, Mr. Neufeld, so thank you very much. Summation, Mr. Harling?
No, I think it's, I think everything's good. Yeah, what we said. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah, so I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Just to say that this is a situation that there are a handful of properties that are facing this, and it's not something that is going to impact values for most properties in Winnipeg, and the negotiations with the assessment department have been very what's the right word, very agreeable for both sides. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, that concludes item number 1. Item number 2 is file number 24-316. Mr. Harling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the file number is 24-316. The roll number is 14100018400. The address is 125 Discovery Place, and the owner is number company 101-60741 Manitoba Limited. 2025 roll year based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023 is assessed at $745,000. So I do actually have another further recommendation on this particular file as well. This one will be a bit quicker. I'm going to speed it up. If you actually just go to page 4 of my brief, you kind of see a picture now. It's kind of, I'll just give a very big context to explain how this works. So this is the same property we're dealing with previously. Now, as you can see, essentially the building is on this roll number. So the reason it was like that was because the owner does own both of these pieces of, both these parcels. It was never amalgamated into one roll. So what we were doing initially was we used to, when there was the building, we would deduct the land value from the main holding to essentially cancel out that land value. Obviously, in this case, the building's gone, so the value of the land is just on its own now. Currently, I mean, as Mr. Neufeld said, maybe if they develop it going forward, that would be something we should hopefully, we can get it so it's one piece of land. So, or whatever they decide to do with it, or what we can do. But anyways, so that's just kind of the context of that. I wanted to give you the context of how that is. So we are assessing it currently at $745,000, on land value. And that was essentially, it's 86,970 square feet at a land rate of $8.57. So that's how we came up with that value. Due to some of the information Mr. Neufeld indicated, with the fact of the no sewer, I'm essentially making a recommendation based on that. So I'm essentially lowering the land rate or the overall value to $471,000. And this is based on adjusting the rate from 857 to 542. Essentially, that's my recommendation.
Okay, so if I can just repeat that back to you, you're recommending a reduction to $471,000 That's based on a land area of $86,970 at $5.42 a square foot.
Yeah, 86,970 square feet, sorry, yeah, at 542 a square, at $5. Yeah,
Did you say 86,000?
yeah, 86,970 square feet is the area, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
At
sorry.
$5.42.
Yes,
A
correct.
square. Okay.
Yeah, correct. That's
Mr.
correct.
Neufeld, do you accept the recommendation?
No, it's the same as before, but thank you for making it. Bigger issues to deal with.
Yeah, no, fair enough. No, I can understand.
So Mr. Neufeld, then do you have questions on Mr. Harling's recommendation?
Just one, I'm looking at the land sales and I know you've changed it and it's not likely these would be primary reliance any longer, but you don't have anything from the area. Couldn't you find any?
I guess the closest one would be, well, Burroughs would be the closest, I guess, but you're right. There might be some further ones closer. You know, I tried to find a similar in size. So yeah, but yeah, I'm mindful, like obviously as you indicated, like these are obviously a superior piece of land now, especially since I believe they all do have servicing as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, that's fine. No, we don't waste any time on something that doesn't matter. No other questions.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions on the recommendation?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlin.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Neufeld. Are you relying on your main evidence for this one?
No.
Okay. So,
It's the same issue again, but you will note that I did find a fair bit in the area. So there are some sales there. And the one at 27 King Edward was actually sold on the base is not in, sorry, is in a precinct plan now. So it's had its development approved. And that's 195,000 an acre. So it's just the rebuttal we were looking at.
so your main presentation does propose a reduction to $200,000.
Correct. Yes.
All right, well, we'll go through just the formality of asking Mr. Harling if he has questions on your main evidence.
I have no questions. No, thank you.
Ms. Anderson
I have no questions. Thank you.
and Mr. Carlin.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Neufeld, you have presented, I'm assuming it's the same rebuttal?
Absolutely the same. And I'm not going to bother going through it if you're okay with the last presentation carried forward, just the change in the acreage.
The change in acreage, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's to
the right page,
yeah, the first page one.
page 1. Okay, can you explain it to us then?
It's the same ideas that there's been a general consensus that there's a range of $30,000 on industrial unserviceable land, and around 50,000 per acre on unserviceable commercial land. I'm trying to unserviceable is different than unserviced, right? Unserviceable means not able to. Unserviced means it hasn't had it yet, but it is able. So this is unserviceable, and that's the key here. 30,000 per acre. 2 acres is a value of $60,000 as a until the service issues with the city have been worked out. I think, by the way, the owner hasn't decided yet, but there may be a request for merger in the future, and it depends if he actually gets anything through on it. But no point doing it now. But they are working on a site plan, and then they're going to try to see if the city will service it. So that'll change things. They were purchased together, and they should have been merged. But,
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Harling, questions for Mr. Neufeld?
No, I have no questions as well. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Carlin?
No questions here either. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, I don't want to go in, well, if you could just explain, you consider that this land will be unserviceable versus unserviced.
Correct.
But it's unserviced, but you also, your point is that it's also unserviceable. Is
Yes,
that-
and that's the critical issue.
Has there, unserviceable means it will never be serviced, but is there evidence that it will never be serviced?
Well, the cities are communities, which I have on page 14, and that they will not be guaranteeing services, and every property, the properties I've been dealing with have all been very recently told you can't, they are not going to service them. So this is a change that came out in around June of 23 when they figured this out.
Okay.
So
Right now it is unserviced. We have the bylaw, the city has this bylaw saying there is no guarantee that it will be serviced.
right.
But has there been communication with the property owner to that effect yet?
No, they've just been through actually, they weren't even aware of this issue until I brought it up with them. And because we've been researching this with the two other properties in the same position, and then I finally got talking to Qualico and to Terracon on their properties, and I've also been told there are two other property owners facing the same dilemma. So it sounds like there's about 6 or maybe 7 properties that we know of who are not guaranteed servicing.
Okay.
As I said, if tomorrow it were serviceable but not serviced yet, I think the assessor's offer would be very fair.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's okay if I just had one quick question if possible.
Sure,
I apologize.
go ahead.
I was just curious, Mr. Neufeld, I was gonna ask, so I know we don't have sewer, but there is water service though, correct? Or
Yeah, and because the water is, they've got capacity on the water.
okay.
Yeah, and especially in this area, if you remember the debate that went on about the city was willing to offer water to all of Centerport, but their contract with Shoal Lake First Nations was it was only for City of Winnipeg land. So they actually have the capacity to do the 6,000 or so acres in that quadrant of the city. That's not been an issue, and it's just the sewer, and also we've all seen the news stories about some of the water treatment plants having problems as well. I know why the water upgrade happened is they built a treatment plant on near Deacon's Corner that nobody even knows about. It was like $1.5 billion, and it's a new treatment plant for water. So they've got a ton of capacity now. The city does.
Okay, that's all I was true. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Chair, may I ask a question? Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, is there an option, like the way that I read the material from the city, their bylaw, is there an option for private sewer servicing on the property where they would have the
If there is a secondary plan,
okay.
and they have approved that. Now, the only places I know where this has occurred are South Wilkes, South St. Vital, and a one crescent off Victoria Crescent, where the land is too low, and instead of putting a lift station in, they allowed a septic. But the same document our communities says, and I sorry I didn't put the extract in, is that the city requirement is full servicing water and sewer. The examples I gave you are from history, predating the planning documents, like, you missed this yet 2 days ago. I went through this. The planning in about 2000 or a little bit before it, the provincial government required every RM and city and town to have a long range planning document. And I think Winnipeg's first one may have been Plan 2020. And then they put their directives in there. So from that date forward, you haven't seen the approval of a system. You know, I think they've done it for, now they've been allowing it for the South Wilkes because they passed the secondary plan, and they are allowing it for South St. Patel because there's a secondary plan, and a secondary plan is sets out different strategies for these because they're deemed rural residential. But they're also required to have minimum acre sizes of 2 acres when you do that. Now, for industrial, there is no such bylaw. Like if you have this, the building that was on there was, I'm trying to remember how big it was, 60,000 square feet. So if you were planning to have an acceptable septic system, they might have required, 40 acres for it. Whereas a house that has a 2,000 foot footprint, they'll let you get out to 2 acres, and it's dealing with potential for sewage. There's a site, Rosser, who are not the city of Winnipeg, are now when now they have the servicing, and they are now requiring it for the people who had approval for it. And so it's I should have answered this shorter, but the answer is no. The long range planning document does not permit any consideration for that unless you're covered by a secondary plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harling, summation?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Neufeld?
Again, this is just something that popped up in the last few weeks and months, and it's impacting a handful of properties, and I think everybody's dealing with it professionally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes item number 2. Item number 3, file number 24-3765, 472 Dufferin. Mr. Harling, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As mentioned, the file number is 24-3765. The roll number is 14001973000. The address is 472 Dufferin Avenue, and the owner is Mariner Neptune Fish and Seafood Company Limited. 2025 roll year based on reference date of April 1st, 2023 is $1,127,000. If you look below on my property description information, so this is an industrial warehouse. The actual year built range from 1961 to 1999. With an overall effective year built of 1980. Wall heights range from 12 to 20 feet. This property is zoned for M1 manufacturing light. The land area is 22,056 square feet with a plan area of 13,869, which gives us a land to plan area of 1.59. And we have a leasable area of 14,779 square feet. If we turn to page 2, my brief, we'll just see the request for income has been received. There are no recent sales and we have no leases in place. Turn to page 3, we just see the subject where it's located. So again, this is just located on Dufferin Avenue. So you can see where the little red marker is, just a Google map image to see where it's located. If we turn to page 4, this is just another photo of the subject where it's located, just a bit more zoomed in. You can see the shape of the building. So it's just, again, fronting Dufferin and just on the corner of Power Street. We turn to page 5, it's just a photo of the subject and just the outline of the subject as well here. We turn to page 6, this is just a further image of the subject, just zoomed in. Page 7, again, just another photo just facing the subject on Dufferin Avenue. And then just pages 8 and 9 is just some further photos from different angles, as well as a street view photo from at the bottom of page 9 on facing Dufferin Avenue. And then lastly, just on page 10, it's just some further photos from the building from the rear on Power Street and just the back of the subject on the back lane here. So those are some photos of the subject property. All right, so if we turn to page 11 of my brief, we'll see the income workup. So we'll see here, we're assessing a leasable area of 14,797 square feet at a rate of, and we're applying a model rate of $6.55 a square foot, which gives us a potential rent of 96,920. We're allowing 4% for vacancy, which gives us an effective gross income of 93,043. We're allowing 3% for expenses and as well as $4 a square foot for shortfall, which then gives us a net operating income of $87,884. And then lastly, we're applying an overall capitalization rate of 7.80%, which then gives us the estimated value of $1,127,000. If we turn to page 12 of my brief, you'll just see some of my rent comparables. So you can see the comparables here. So they are located on 34 McDonald Avenue, St. Matthews, Alexander, Wyatt Street, and Sherwin Road. The lease start dates range from December 14th, 2020 to January 1st, 2023. The lease terms range from 1 to 4 years. Leasable areas range from 15,000 to 21,000 square feet. Wall heights range from 16 feet to 26 feet. The effective year bills range from 1964 to 1986. And the rents in place range from $7.31 a square foot to $9.20 a square foot. So these are the rent comparables. In terms of cap rate, the building, being at 7.80%, it would be based on factors such as the age, size, location. So those would be some of the factors of the cap rate. I don't believe it's being unreasonable. We've acknowledged, some of the factors of that. So henceforth, we're using a cap rate of 7.80%. So page 13 is just some cap rate information. Page 14 of my brief is just some municipal assessment accuracy information. And then pages 15 and 16 of my brief are just the income and expense mayor that was submitted with property. So this continues on, page 16. So that being said, I believe that concludes my presentation and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurling. Mr. Neufeld, do you have questions for the assessor?
Yes, I do. So the code on this is storage warehouse, that's SWH.
That would be the code, correct?
Yeah. Was there consideration for a different code on it? Like, you know that this is a fish processing company, right?
Yeah, and then Neptune, I'm aware of the company. Yeah.
Okay. Was there an opportunity to put a different code on that? I don't know if that would be like manufacturing.
It's something that we could probably, but I'm mindful of that. It's a tough one. It's not something I guess I had looked into. No, I can't say.
No, and it is let's just say it's a rather obscure usage these days. There's only a few of them around.
Yeah, I know a few, but you're right. There's not I guess, significant amount. Yeah.
And the vacancy, I take it, is based on neighborhood market region 6, and that's the vacancy that is applied for industrial. Was there a thought to the loft warehouse vacancy rate, considering the type of property it was?
No, I don't think there was. No, I don't believe that would be something that we would have done in this case. No.
Okay. Well, but these vacancy rates and rental rates and cap rates, they're geared towards it's the same rate, one size fits all for every industrial property, right?
Like we look at, I'd say every properties, there are going to be some similarities, but it's not going to be the same per se for everything across the board. We try our best to make it, as site specific as possible,
but there's no adjustment for site specific issue in regard to vacancy, is there?
No, they said it's a market vacancy based on the location of the area. So
yeah. Okay. And your rents, what are these properties?
in terms of what do you mean? What are they?
Well,
exactly?
what are the usage? 34 McDonald.
Oh, that is I think it's I don't know the tenant in there at the moment. I apologize. I know it's just kind of like a steel type building, whatever, like, steel walls, corrugated type steel building. I believe it might be used for a glass place, I believe, whatever, something to do with glass.
Okay. And what's common in the properties in the North End is that a lot of these rents happen to be gross. Did you review the mailer to double check that it was not a gross lease, because I don't think that I've seen a rent that high in that particular neighborhood.
No, I'm mindful that it is a little higher. As far as I know, it is. But again, I don't have the information at the moment. I looked at these prior, so unfortunately that was a little while back when I looked at these. So as far as I know, it is. But like I said, I'd have to verify. So
Yeah, okay. And what is 1733 St. Matthews?
I don't have the exact tenant that's in there. I mean, just to kind of maybe speed things up, most of these are, would be a storage warehouse type usage.
Okay.
So yeah, so.
Oh, okay, all right. I guess that's what I was driving at. You don't have any fish processing plants in there, do you?
Well, like I said, there's probably very few comps, if any of them, yeah, so, but.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, do you have questions for the assessor?
Thank
No
you.
questions. Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And just to confirm, Mr. Harling, this is all model?
Correct, it's a mall derived, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld. Oh, just one more thing. Sorry, to confirm on your page 16, this looks like it's an owner occupied property?
Yes, correct, yeah, I was gonna mention, yeah, it's owner occupied, correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Neufeld.
Yes, and you've got the idea. It's a Neptune Mariner fish plant, and they still do a little bit of processing on the site, and repackaging of fish products, and it's retail and wholesale from this site. Very low land building ratio, and because it's where it's located and on Dufferin Avenue. And the original concept of it. You can see that our overhead picture that they do have room, 3 bays for shipping. It's a limited facility, but the other point on this is when you're considering an industrial property, those trucks that go in there shouldn't be 30-footers and 40-footers. They need to accommodate semi-trailers, and those are not semi-trailers. So that's a negative factor in this building's desirability. The other point on the overhead, you can see that there are at least 6 sections of building. And I have been in the building and inspected it. I don't know if we put any of my pictures in. No. So when you get inside, it's again, it's one of these properties that got built on, added on, and it's a maze inside. It's not all nice clear span space. The freezer room where the trucks are lined up is the most modern, and then the other parts are older. Our difference with the assessor's number is rent and a small issue on the vacancy, and the rest of the issues were very, very similar to what they did. And I didn't do this workup. Just for the record, I would have done it differently, but it's what I'm bringing you. In regards to the rents, we looked at on our page 4, we had some industrial rents, and we're always updating the lease as we go along. And what we looked at on this one was the lower end of the more recent rates to account for the quality of it. And you can see our number 7, 1681 Church is that at the lower end, 12,000 feet at 524. And I think that's the most representative of the situation and subject. I think that the assessor has given you kind of an average rate, which you can see from our table that if this were average quality warehouse, we probably wouldn't necessarily disagree with it, but it's not. It goes to the lower end of the range. And the vacancy was there is no calculation here. Okay. I did not present any evidence onto what that is. Verbally, we tend to look at the Johnson report, and And looking at the numbers here, and so this would be Central. The Johnson report on a single tenant is at 8.3% for Central, and the overall rate for the city is 3.5. So you can see what we usually try to do is look at the site-specific Central region and average that off the overall rate, just to deal with the concern for sample size. So 8.3 plus 3.5 is 11.8 divided by 2 equals 6. That's how we came up with our rate. As I keep saying with the Johnson report, what's good about it is that they actually have every detail of every vacancy listed in Winnipeg, and the central sample size is 79 properties, 1.8 million square feet. So that it's in and by itself, it's probably pretty good indicator that a large enough sample size for our purposes. But the idea is that just pinning it down to a neighborhood isn't like houses necessarily. It's a particular user. Where would he be? So that's why we average it out. So that's my number, 833,000. And incidentally, I just wanted to point out one other thing here, that the assessor has an actual year built of 1961. There's actually a section from 1920 in the building. I apologize. I was there. I had a picture of it, and it didn't make it. But that is the original age of of one of the early sections, and that came from the ownership with their own survey and engineers' plans. And that's my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Harling, do you have questions for Mr. Neufeld?
Just one quick question is, because I know you were speaking to I know we're not too far apart on the vacancy, obviously, but so I just noticed in your brief you put, like, Johnson report, you put vacancy reports for office vacancies.
Yeah, well, I don't. Yes, that's a mistake. We do everything by hand here. We don't have a button to press on a computer that spits out these reports.
Oh, no, I said, yeah, same thing. We put our briefs, we got to put it together too. I know what you mean. So,
Yeah, no,
okay.
But the calculation was done that way. It was just that we didn't present the information in the evidence.
Okay. That's still the question I have then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harling. Mr. Carlin, do you have questions for the applicant?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions either. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions either. So thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Harling, summation?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah. Essentially, this is not a property that's an investment property. It's a site that was made and created at a time to provide services to the public and to wholesalers, and the income model is fairly weak in that respect. And if you were going to put a number on it, you can see that our major issue for concern is the rental rate based on neighborhood and use. I think that a building like this type that is so unique, you'd probably want to steer towards the sales comparison approach. And I just opened the Johnson report on, and just looking to see what they had listed for there. And so typically older industrial buildings in this neighborhood will have a range of $10 to $40 a square foot, and that's how they transact. And like I said, as an appraiser, I would probably lean on that. I don't think it's fair to call this an investment property. It's not people lining up to make a return on their income, their investment on this type of property as an end user, strange use. And so our number works out to about $50 a square foot, which is actually a little bit on the high end of what the sales ranges are, but I think it's fair, the number we have here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neufeld. That concludes item number 3. Item number 4. File number 24-4043. Mr. Harling, when you are ready, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is 24-4043. The roll number is 14096652100. The address is 1595 Brookside Boulevard, and the owner is number company 2925924 Manitoba Ltd. 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1st, 2023 is $1,703,000. Look at the bottom page 1 of my brief. You'll see we classify this as an industrial warehouse. The actual and effective year builds are 1991. Wall heights are 18 feet. The zoning is M1 manufacturing light. Land area is 110,319 square feet, with a plan area of 12,250 square feet, with a land to plan area of 9:1, and an overall leasable area of 12,250 square feet. If you turn to page 2 of my brief, you'll see the request for information has been received. The reason have been no recent sales. Last time property sold was in 2012, and we do not have a current lease in place in our file. So if you turn to page 3 of my brief, we'll see the subject location. So this is just located on Brookside Boulevard, just east of Oak Point Highway. So you can kind of see our location where it is. Down the bottom of page 3, if we zoom in, we can just see where the little red dot is, where the subject's located on Brookside Boulevard. If you turn to page 4 of my brief, you'll just see the parcel outline, the top zoomed out, and then at the bottom of page 4, it's more zoomed in. So you can see the building that we're assessing here. If we continue to page 5, we'll just see some further photos of the subject. You can see here it's essentially just kind of a garage type use, if you will. So you can see where it's fronting on Brookside at the bottom here. And most of the land in the back, you can just see they're just storing vehicles and things of that nature. And if we turn to page 6 of my brief, it's just a street view photo, so you just kind of get a better idea of how the building looks on the parcel. So you can kind of just see here the loading bay doors open here, and just give you an overall look of the building. Okay, so if we turn to page 7 of my brief, we'll see there are 3 we're classifying as a storage warehouse. There are 3 premises on the property, ranging in size from 3,500 square feet to 5,250 square feet, which gives us a total usable area of 12,250 square feet. We are using an overall blended rent of $8.02 a square foot, which gives us a potential rent of $98,280, around 3% for vacancy, which gives us an effective gross income of $94,840, allowing 3% for expenses, which then gives us, and $4 per square foot of shortfall, which then gives us a net operating income of $90,280. And then lastly, we're applying an overall cap rate of 5.30%, which then gives us the estimated value of $1,703,000. If we turn to page 8 of my brief, see some of my rent comparables. So some of the rent comparables, you can see some locations. We have Burroughs Avenue, Paramount, Church, Spruce, Fife, Heckle Avenue, Omens Creek, and McDonald Avenue. So most of these are in the same market region, minus the one at the bottom, 34 McDonald Avenue. These leases range from January 1st, 2018 to November 1st, 2022. Leases range from 1 to 10 years. Leasable areas range from 2,733 square feet to 15,000 square feet. Wall heights range from 16 feet to 22 feet. Effective year bills range from 1965 to 1992. And the rents in place range from $7.88 a square foot to $13.92 a square foot. So these are the comparables that used that support, I would believe, support the value that have been applied. So yeah, now in terms of the cap rate, 5.3, it is a bit of on the lower end. Some of the factors I believe that would, supplement that would be, it's, 1991, it's not significantly old building, but it's not new either. I'm mindful of that. We do have a 9:1 land to plan ratio as well. And it is a fairly small building at, 12,000 square feet. So those would be some of the factors that would derive the cap rate. Page 10 of my brief is just some municipal assessment accuracy of information. And then page 11 on the brief is just the mailer in place. Just looking at the mailer, they've indicated a net income of $87,448. So I don't believe our net incomes are too unreasonable based on our model. So we're right in the same realm. a range, I should say. Page 12 is just a further photo or further information regarding the income expense mailer. And page 13 is just a floor plan, an older floor plan photo, just again show it's basic, 3 units. You can just kind of see the outline of the units. And then pages 14 and 15 are just the sales mailer of the property that occurred in 2012. So that being said, I believe that concludes my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harling. Mr. Neufeld. Questions?
Yes, I'm just looking at the pictures on your page. Is this code compliant, the gravel yard?
What do you mean code compliant exactly? What's your
Building code, planning bylaw? Is this allowable anymore? Do you know?
I mean, yes, I get it. It's an older building, so you're right. I mean, you know what? I'm not gonna say I don't have the information on the codes.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just noticed the picture here. On your page 7, you're showing 3 rental units. How many rental units are there actually in the site?
Well, I said we have it as broken up as 3 premises, yes. But yes, like I believe it's just the one tenant in there, from my understanding, I believe so.
Would your model have had a different number if if there was one premise ID, one occupancy only?
Well, as I indicated, like we have a blended rent, right? So we're taking into account all 3 of those. So that would be essentially, if it was 1 unit, that's what kind of the rent we would apply. So
No, I understand it's blended, but on a larger unit, does not your model have a different rate? Like, would it be between 788 and 813, or would it be lower because it's larger? Do you know that?
I mean, economies of scale, like, I mean, I'm not going to go into the specifics of the model, but yeah, economies of scale would have a factor on that. You're right. A smaller would have higher, low rate, lower would have, higher, or sorry, lower area would have a higher rate.
Right.
Bigger would have lower. Yes, correct.
And page 7 is all done by the model.
Is model right?
Yeah, okay. And the actual income is 87,000 without consideration for vacancy, and your model number is 98,000. I'm just kind of wondering, had you gone to a single use, would you think model would have driven out a number of 87,000?
Well, I was gonna say, I think our net income is actually 90,000. So but you're right. It's pretty close.
Well, it's not. No, it's not net income, because remember, whatever they are showing to you on page 11 does not include a vacancy, and a vacancy is separate.
There would be some variation. Yes, I'm mindful.
Everybody gets a vacancy rate applied.
Correct. Yes, I know it.
The potential income as full, 87,448. Your potential income as full is 98,280. I mean, the models. So my question was, do you think the model may have been closer to accurate to the actual if it had been one premise instead of
you know what? I don't really have the answer to that.
Okay. And the 3.5% vacancy, is that you're listing that as being in industrial region 1?
I believe so. Correct. Yes, 1. Yeah.
And do you know where the border is between 1 and 4?
You know what? I don't have that information on hand. No, I apologize. No.
Okay. Well, but I mean, the location of this on Brookside, they face the airport, correct?
Yes, that would be facing the airport. Correct. Yeah.
Okay. In regard to the capitalization rate, I'm looking at page 9. Just confirm that the city does not break down their cap rates for like private enterprise does with singles and multis and A's and B's. It's everybody. You have no distinction there.
Yeah, no. You know what? I'm mindful of the cap rate situation. Yeah, I'm mindful maybe it could be looked at as a little lower in the end. But yeah, I mean, the fact of being smaller in size, that was some of the factors I would take into account. But yes,
sure. I was just looking at, you don't break it down. You only.
Oh yes, no,
one.
Correct. No,
yeah,
correct.
And the values you've put forward all tend to show a lower rate in your 20th percentile than any of the people who sell these buildings are reporting. I mean, some of them changes are significant and some aren't significant. Um, uh, why would you not put weight on the numbers that the people who sell buildings provide?
You know, again, these are I'm mindful of the outside sources. You know, again, we don't know what sales they put into this. We don't know how this derived. So I'm mindful of the fact there's going to be some variations. And you know what? I understand it is a bit of a lower cap rate, so I'm mindful of that though. So
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. And I just noticed something here on page 15. I know we usually don't, this is a very old return. What does that say for the interest rate?
on which page? Page 15, you said?
Yeah,
You know what? It's kind of blurry on my end too. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I can make that out. I
I-
mean,
I'm s-
honestly, I'm not putting a lot of weight. I'm not looking really too much on the sales. So, but
no, I just, is that a 1.5%? And underneath it, it says 3%?
if I zoom in, that's what probably I think it looks like roughly. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And the lender was BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada. Okay. And that was in 2012.
Correct.
Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, do you have questions for the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin,
No questions from me either. Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Hurling, is this a owner occupied property?
No, I believe there is the actual. No, I believe there actually is the tenant in there.
There is a tenant
yeah,
and the
tricorn.
tenant is taking the whole space?
Yes, they are occupying the entire area. Yes, correct.
Okay, on page 12, sorry, I can't make it out. Can you derive for that what the rent is?
I think I could work it out. Yeah, I apologize. I know I should have made it a bit bigger. I apologize for that. So,
No, that's
well,
okay. It is the way it is.
well, if you look at actually page 11, you'll be able to look at the rental income. I think that would be, if we do the math here, I guess you're giving me 2 seconds here. 84, 72, 92 times 12. I think it's right. Yeah, it's yeah. If you look at page 11, yeah, the 101,607 would be the rent income.
Okay, and on a square foot basis, what does that work out to?
12,250, 830, I think. Yeah, 830 works out too if you take the 100,000 divided by the lease layer of 12,250.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, your presentation, please.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments here. The general on the property. So I saw the assessor brought forward a very old document on a sale, and I think that has to be taken in perspective. I've worked with this ownership group. It's a family for it's been like 15 years, 20 years. And they're the people who clean the sewers in Winnipeg. You've seen their trucks blowing sewers open, and they've had a particular problem finding a place for their truck storage in the zoning maze that is Winnipeg. This was one of their attempts to find a site. I know of 4 properties that they bought solely with the purpose of finding a parking space for their trucks, and only to have the use denied because it's outside storage and parking. And this particular one they simply outgrew because it's too small for them. And then after then they turned it into a rental property. The original purchase was for their own business needs, that made the sale not fitting market value. I know it was under undue pressure. It was a business reason for expansion. But what's remarkable about that is, that two things. One, it's BDC financing, which means that the business is involved, because BDC just doesn't finance people who buy buildings. They finance businesses, expansions, employee takeovers. They have a specialized niche on financing, and so it was not a typical sale. That's the other telling point on it. But the interest rate of 3%. Today, April 1st, 2023, on our page 39, the Bank of Canada rate alone was 4.75% on that date. And so your lending rate would be in around, after the banks take their markup, closer to 6%. So it's twice as high. And what that means is that your returns on investment have to be targeted higher, because everybody works on the spread. And this just saved me. I won't go through the rest of it before, because most of you have heard me go on and on about the concept of financing being linked to cap rates. And on page 31, there is the spread shown. So if you look at the sale date, 2012, the spread from the commercial mortgage rate to the cap rates, and this is all properties, not the subject, is a little over 2 points. So if you use the same model today, or April 1st, 2023, that would indicate a minimum of an 8% cap rate is required. Because now we actually have proof of what somebody paid in 2012 when we compare it to today. And so the 8% though is for all properties, not just industrial. The property is leased now, and this was not its primary purpose. This was we're done with it. We can't do any more, so we're going to lease it, and the rent they're receiving is $87,448 because it's a semi-gross lease. And you'll notice that when you read see the assessor's evidence, I have cautioned all our clients not to use that form, to do it. You're not appraisers, you're not professionals. Don't make the distinction if it's net or gross, because you don't know. And these people clean sewers for a living. They're very good at that, but they're not accountants or appraisers. It's a semi-gross lease. It's clear that it is. $87,448 is the potential income after expenses. So on our page 1, we've used that. The vacancy, I don't think it's an issue here. As far as a 5% rate, I think it was a little bit of downward pressure just for the location, and because it's off the beaten track for industrial. To get to this site, it's not as convenient as many industrial properties. But we did use a lower shortfall rate than the city, just because we're looking at the actuals, not the model. And you've probably heard me say in other appeals is that if your value is high, your taxes are high, your shortfall has to be high. This one has had a lower value than the mean, for reasons that are clear, and therefore the shortfall should be lower. So that's what we do. So they kind of balance off the shortfall versus the vacancy. So they're non-issues. What are the issues is the rent, the $11,000 difference, and the cap rate. We devised our cap rate by we use as a model. Our model to start off is the Collier's best rate, which is 6.5. This is not a good property. This isn't investor grade. So we look at the deficiencies, and the design and layout and the year built and the quality, and I have inspected the site. It's just a steel framed shed. It's very basic. Things like the gravel I was bringing up, it's not permitted any longer, but they are on a legal non-conforming use. Any change down the road would require the site to be fully paved, and that's so that the trucks don't drag gravel onto the city roads and destroy them. Of course, where it's located on Brookside off Logan, the roads are in such bad shape. I can't see how any it would really matter anymore. But that is a code issue that people have to worry about. We're relying on the paid income. And the condition is based on our own inspection of it. It's just a beat up old site. And that's what some people need. The Collier's cap rate, just the background on that, and because I haven't said it yet, but I won't have to say it again then later, is we don't track garbage properties like this garbage, and that's a dual usage word now. They clean garbage, and it's not a great site. It's just good usable industrial that you don't have to care about keeping up. So our cap rate report, we had an issue. We found that there was an error in Q1 2023, and so the assessor is using that. That's not correct. There was the entire report was missed that quarter, and they put in the one from the previous quarter. So the actual number should be for this is, as the letter explains on page 38, would be an industrial B 6.5 to 7.5 as the best rate. That's how we started at the 6.5 when we ended up at 7.7. The interest rate again is page 39. Again, it's integral to cap rates. As far as actual cap rates, there have been so few investment sales in the last 3-4 years, or actually for the 3 years preceding the reference period. It was more of a wait and see attitude. As interest rates jacked and began going up, people weren't putting their product on the market because they would have to take a significant downward adjustment to what they'd hoped they would get. So it was more of a hold and wait. And I know from other talking on other appeals that the assessors have noted that as well. So when you have a situation like that, you can't simply say, well, we'll just use older rates. That's not right, because the law says Municipal Assessment Act, we reassess every 2 years to account for market changes, and the market changed. Cap rates got worse, not better. We do, just for interest sake, on page 49 to 51, kind of give you an indication of how you would grade these properties, class A and B industrial, and this one is miscellaneous. It's sub D, and what that means is that an investor is not interested in a property like this. It would be an end user again. The income approach is designed to, is incorporated by the city because it's a good attempt at equity. The problem is when you fall off the end of the scale and you're no longer an investment property, is that you have to figure out how to look at it. And as I was speaking earlier, if you were looking at it from a sales point of view, then this, I was mentioning before, $19, $66, $36, $61 a square foot, that would be where you'd start looking at for a property like this. And our requested value is approximately $60 a square foot. No, sorry, $80 a square foot. That's probably the way we should have provided some additional guidance on that basis. And I'm looking at several sales that would have shown some interest, would have been interesting to look at. That's true with this property, the Dufferin property. I think some. Anyway, that's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Newfeld. Mr. Harling, do you have questions for Mr. Newfeld?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
Nope, no questions at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Newfeld, I have no questions either. Mr. Harling, summation?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Newfeld?
Paid rent's best evidence of rental value. It's $11,000 lower than the model has generated. And I think it's due to the error of using 3 units instead of a single unit. We would have been closer. The capitalization rate is, there is no such thing as a 5.3% cap rate. It does not exist. I've seen apartment buildings capping that low, but not dirty industrial buildings. The risks are too high. This offer this in the market, you're probably looking at 8 to 9%, which we didn't put in. But as an appraiser, I work on several projects, and that's where these things are capping at. High risk. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. That concludes item number 4. Given our timelines, we have 4 out of 9 done. I'd like to continue without a break, or would anybody like a 5-minute break? As long as we can still get done.
I'm fine. I'm not sure about everybody else, but
I will need one at some point, either now or after the next one.
Okay, let's get done number 5 then, and then we'll take a 5-minute break after that. Okay, Mr. Harling, file number 24-3970, please.
thank you, Madam Chair. So the file number again is 243970. The roll number is 14096620900. The address is 410 Oak Point Highway, and the owner is Oak Point Land Limited. 2025 roll year based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023 is $1,541,000. Looking at the property description below, we'll see it's an industrial warehouse use. Effective year built is 1978, as well as the actual year built. Wall heights are 16 feet. The zoning is C3 commercial corridor. Land area is 55,164 square feet with a plan area of 9,216 square feet, which gives us a land plan area of 5.99 or 1:6 roughly. And we have a leasable area of 9,216 square feet. If you turn to page 2 of my brief, see the request for income information. There's a sale there. I'm not putting any weight on that. It wasn't a good sale, so you can just disregard that. So, and then there is no subject lease we have in place. Page 3 of my brief, you'll see the subject location. This is actually just east of the previous property. So this one's located on Oak Point Highway. So you can kind of see here at the bottom of page 3 where it's situated, just on the Oak Point Highway, and then fronts or in the corner of Eagle Drive. If you see some further photos on page 4 of my brief, you can just see the parcel outline as well as the shape of the overall piece of land and where the building is situated right in the center of the property. This is continued on page 5, just again showing further angles of the subject, just to show the building in itself. Continues on page 6, and you can see page 6 here. You can just see a picture of the photo from street view. This is on facing Eagle Drive. And then on page 7, this is just a photo of the subject facing Oak Point Highway. So you've got an idea of what the property is, how it's situated, and how it looks. Okay, so we turn to page 8 of my brief. You'll see the income workup. So we have 2 premises here for a total area of 9,216 square feet. We have an overall blended rent of $9.08 a square foot, which gives us a potential rent of $83,682. We're on 3.5% vacancy, which then gives us an estimated or an effective gross income of $80,753. Expenses, we're applying 3% for expenses as well as $4 a square foot for shortfall, which then gives us an overall net operating income of $77,040. And then lastly, we're applying an overall cap rate of 5%, which gives us the estimated value of $1,541,000. So if we turn to page 9 of my brief, we see some of the rent comparables. I've used some of these previously, so I'll just kind of go through these here. So they range from January 1st, 2018 to June 2021. They range 1 to 11 years. Areas range from 2,733 square feet to 9,638 square feet. Wall heights are 16 feet to 22 feet. Effective year bills range from 1965 to 1992. And the net rents range from $8.36 a square foot to $13.92 a square foot. So turn to page 10, just information about the cap rates. This is like very similar to the last property, so I'm mindful of the fact of, yes, it's a very low cap rate. So, I'm very mindful of the situation. The driving factors probably would more likely be based on the location and the size of the building, again, being smaller. So those would be some of the main factors. So I'm mindful of the cap rate. Page 11, my brief, just a municipal assessment act excerpt information. Page 12, my brief, we just have the income expense mailer. This is on pages 12, 13, and 14. Page 15, my brief, this is just the floor plan of the property. So this is just kind of the main floor level. You can kind of see here, they have a bit of an office, little small office showroom space. And then the rest is, you can see there's a paint booth and some service repair area. If we turn to page 16, my brief, this is just the floor plan. There's like a very small mezzanine space, as you can see here, just based on the floor plan. Page 17, you can just ignore that. Again, that was just the sale that I wasn't a good sale, so you can ignore that. And just one thing I just would like to mention, just to be, being, fair and equitable here. So I'm mindful of the fact that there was a permit taken out in 2022 there was actually a fire that occurred in a portion of the building, I believe, where the paint booth was. So there was a fire that occurred. So I just went through and to show that was what happened, and then just show the permit. And if we turn to page 20, there's another permit that was taken up for some material alterations. I have not inspected the property, so I can't speak to the current, the repair status. I was looked into I had access to the property plan and development information. They had some permits that were closed, so I think maybe some of the work maybe has been done, but again, I was unfortunately, I would have liked to inspect it, but I just unfortunately didn't get time. So I just wanted to mention that there was, that did occur in the building, so. But that being said, that I believe concludes my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harling. Mr. Neufeld, questions for Mr. Harling?
Yeah, so this is coded again, warehouse. But you just mentioned a paint spray booth. So it's not a warehouse, is it?
No, it would be, you can almost argue maybe some kind of service garage in a sense, right?
Right, and it's owned by a company that runs body shops, correct?
Yeah,
Or did you know?
I believe it's Refinish. I believe the company is. Yeah, so.
Yeah, okay. And you've got a upper floor area listed here, and I'm a page.
16.
Yeah, you've got a total of 9,216 square feet. Is that you're calling that the plan area?
Yeah, that would be probably, because well, the plan area and the leasable area we have is the same. So yeah.
Okay. So you haven't, and I notice you put the plans in here. So my question is, if you look on your page 15, you see the dimensions?
Yes.
110 by 80.
Yeah.
So that's 8,800 square feet. And it's your evidence, not mine.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to dispute that. So.
So I'm just wondering where you came with 9,200. And it's not adding the storage area in, because that is about 600 square feet on the upper level storage. You haven't added that. That's shown on page 16. And the owner on their income and expense form has indicated 8,800 square feet.
Well, I mean, if you do include that mezzanine space, it actually would be like 9,400, so.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's 9,400, and
Yeah.
that doesn't work out either.
Oh, no, I'm mindful of that. That may be a slight, you know,
And
something
you-
that has to be adjusted.
And it's not finished, it's storage space, so but so I'm just kind of wondering if there might be an error somewhere there, or you have a different measurement.
I mean, you know what? I mean, depending on when this building was put out, there could have been some, you know, obviously there's been some changes over the years, so that might be something we'll just have to go and update, obviously, yeah, so.
Well, I'm looking at your overheads. I don't see any addition on it that's different than the original building plan, do you?
Well, as I stated, like there is that clearly, I said, I understand that that mezzanine space is, we're not including it, so that might be something we have to adjust, so.
Yeah, okay. And the valuation then, so what is the area? The second premise ID is 1,200 square feet. Do you have any notes on that?
I don't have that in my brief now, so.
Okay. And this was page not 8, all done by the model,
This is all model derived, correct?
right? And you did comment on the cap rate. Okay. Same questions as before. You don't have this breakdown now. Yeah, just out of curiosity, do you know if the cap rate would have been different in your model if you had used, say, a service garage or something like that?
You know what? I can't, I don't want to speculate. I don't know off the top of my head. There's some potential, yes, but I don't have the information, unfortunately, so.
Okay. And okay, owner occupied, never mind. Page 18. So I know you didn't rely on the sale because it's cousin to cousin. We've been through this, but 3.9% interest rate. Can you get that today, or could you get that on April 1st, 2023?
I don't believe that was a interest rate at the time, but like as I said, I'm not, yeah, whatever, I'll just leave it at that, yeah, so.
Okay, those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, do you have questions for Mr. Harley?
I don't. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions either, so Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you. Firstly, there is a lean-to beside the building, and I don't know if that's where the assessor's variable in size came in. That's not a building, though. Was never part of it. It's if you look at the street view pictures, and I didn't put in a really good detailed one that you can see, but that door is open, or it's it's not a sealed door. It's a shed, a lean-to, so it's not accessible. It's not rentable at all. It's like a garden shed. Our rent on it was $820 a square foot on 8,800, and that was mostly due to again, we're looking at the rents we have on our page 3, and it was towards the upper end of the range, and the reasoning was that it had a large land allocation, and the building is sited fairly well for uses, and it's on Oak Point Highway, so it's going to command a better rental rate, because what's happening at this juncture in Oak Point is that more and more used car operations are coming in, and the rent that we actually were looking at, it didn't put it in the lease. There's a place across the street that has an automotive use in it, whose rent is $8, or $8.20. It never made our evidence. Yes, so when the workup was done, that's what we were thinking about. As a service garage. The capitalization is again driven by page 2. Best rate in Colliers is a B industrial 6.5, and the deficiencies on it are that it was actually built and designed as more of a garage. Now, for some users that's good, for some users it isn't. So there might be some cost to what you're doing is you're reducing your appeal to the marketplace unless you put capital in it. So it's just a little bit more money to change that up. And the factor, our adjustment factor in that is like 0.2 of a point on the cap for a 2-point change on our rating scale. So these are all small adjustments, and we're going through it as an investor would to say what's the good side, good things, bad things. The quality is low quality. The picture that's shown on our page 2 was before current ownership, and it was a bus repair place, and it's pretty basic, but it has the zoning that the owner wants to be able to do body shop repair. He has a truck body shop down the road in an arm of Rosser, and this operates as a satellite operation to that for that truck auto body business with a bay size. Again, with a body shop, the issues on cap rates on those is that they're generally not a lot of investment ones. Boyd actually has a lot, but they're based on the residential user, the cars, not trucks. So it's another kind of obscure usage. Not a lot of investment level interest. This was end user to end user, and again, another indication in 2019, he got a 3.5% cap rate, and then on April 1st, 2023, he'd be looking at 6. That impacts the cap rate, which impacts the value of the property. You drive the price down until you reach a return that allows you to pay your mortgage. It's simple math, or at least it is. Like I like to portray it as simple, but if you want to simplify it, again, look at our page 22, the spread. That was from 2021. We had the more recent one in here as well. That's the simplified way of looking at cap rates. The model, page 31, that was the one. A model making cap rates is completely improper. A math program cannot emulate the interest of an investor and the risk level that a cap rate is intended for. They do not look at what the model looks at. They look at the length and strength of the revenue stream that they anticipate, what expenses they may have to pay. The expenses they may have to pay are going to be based on the issues they look at in the building. They worry about, if it goes vacant, can I turn it over quickly and get a new tenant in there? And all of these factors make properties like this a little more difficult. Page 37 incidentally has our description of what we consider to be industrial class A and B, and plus my pictorial representation of the classes on page 49 to 51. And this would be a D class building that we're speaking of today. But the incentive on it is the land area and the alternate use in the car business, which is why it's not a $6 rent or a $7 rent. That's why it's an $8 rent. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Harley, questions for Mr. Neufeld?
You know what? No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions for Mr. Neufeld?
Nope, that was good. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
And I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have no questions either. So, Mr. Harling, do you have summation?
No, I think I'll be okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Just to correct an error, I said that picture on page 2 was from the prior user. No, that's the current user. That's a picture from quite recently. They do bus body shop work here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, that concludes item number 5. So let's take a recess until 11 o'clock. That's 11 minutes. On the promise that we'll get through this docket by shortly after 12 at the latest. Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll jump right into our docket now at item number 6, file number 24-4349. Mr. Harlan, whenever you're ready, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As indicated, the file number is 24-4349. The roll number is 1496181600. The address is 231 Oak Point Highway, and the owner is Crossroads Oils Ltd. 2025 roll year based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023 is $3,863,000. If you look on below on page 1, see the prop description information. This is a 1-story building. There are 6 premises on the roll. The actual year builds range from 1971 to 2007, as well as the effective year builds. We are using an overall effective year build of 1992. The wall heights range from 12 to 26 feet. The zoning is M1 manufacturing light. We have a land area of 96,243 square feet with a plan area of 37,638, which gives us a land to plan area of 2.56. And the overall leasable area is 37,560 square feet. Page 2, my brief. There's no, the request for information have been received. There are no recent sales on the subject, and we have no leases in place currently. Well, if we turn to page 3, my brief, we can see the subject property where it's located. So this is just located on Oak Point Highway, very close to the previous property. So again, in that same area of the city. We turn to page 4, my brief. You can see a picture of the subject where the little red dot is. That's where the subject is located on Oak Point Highway. We turn to page 5, my brief. We'll just see some photos of the subject, parcel outline. So at the top, just a more zoomed out photo. And at the bottom, page 5, we can just see a parcel. Zoomed in photo of the entire parcel. Page 6 is just some further photos. You can see the 2 buildings that were on the roll here. So we have the one in the very far corner and then the one on the other side of the corner. Bottom page 6, you can just see some further photos of the property. And then page 7, my brief, you can just see some street view photos of the subjects. So the first property here at the top here. So you can see here, there's obviously, it's actually being used as a used car auto dealership. And the other picture on the bottom here, this is for an automotive detailing shop that's being used. So this is currently the businesses that are being used in the property. And then page 8 are just some pictures I was able to find online of just this is the auto match auto, which is in the office. And then here's just some of the pictures from the shed or the other, I guess, garage area, if you will. So there's just some photos I was able to find. Okay, so we turn to page 9 of my brief. You'll see here we have a number of premises, so which just gives the total leasable area of 37,560 square feet. If we look at the rents, the net or the model rents in place, we're using an overall rent of $6.52 a square foot, which gives us a potential rent of $244,980. You're allowing 3.5% for vacancy, which gives us a effective gross income of $236,413. 3% for expenses, as well as $4 square foot for shortfall, which gives us a net operating income of $224,063. And then lastly, we're applying an overall capitalization rate of 5.80%, which then gives us the estimated value of $3,863,000. So, one thing I'll just point out, I'm mindful of the fact of, this property being used, it's essentially being used more for like an auto automotive uses, as a lot of the properties on Oak Point Highway, as Mr. kind of Neufeld alluded to. So I'm just, obviously you can see that obviously, right? So I'm just mindful of that. But so some of the comparables here, you can look here. So they range in leasable range from dates of lease terms from January 1st, 2018 to June 2022, range from 1 to 5 years. Leasable areas range from 5,332 square feet to 47,500 square feet. Wall heights range from 14 feet to 27 feet. The effective year built ranging from 1965 to 2000. And the rents in place range from $6.75 a square foot to $13.92 a square foot. So these are some of the comparables I've used, as you can see here. Turn to page 11, just some information related to the cap rate. So again, we're at 5.8%. So obviously it's a larger building. So it's another reason why we, again, factors based on age, size, location. Those would be factors that are, take into play for the cap rate. So obviously we're slightly higher than the previous properties. Again, being a larger building, that would be one of the factors that would derive the cap rate we're looking at here. Page 12 of my brief is just a municipal assessment act excerpt information. And then pages 13 through 15 is just the expense mayor that has been provided. Apologies to page 16. Page 17 is just a floor plan, just to showing the two properties, the two building business I mentioned as a Match Auto, and then Rebirth. So you can kind of just see an outline of all the property here. And then lastly on page 18 of my brief, it's just a permit that was taken out for just the Rebirth Auto detailing back in 2024, or a recent permit that was just taken out for just some the change of use. So that being said, I believe that would conclude my presentation, and I am open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harling. Mr. Neufeld, do you have questions for Mr. Harling?
I do. I'm trying to reconcile the areas, and maybe if you've got the information, it might be helpful. But on page 1, plan areas 37,638, and then gross 38,981, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And that space, the difference of about 1,300 feet, is that for the mezzanine and the auto dealer area?
You know what? That would be my guess. Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have it exact, but I think you would be. Yeah, I think that might be correct. Though. Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to figure something out here. So now if I go to page 9, and incidentally, it's different every year. Are these premise IDs identifiable on the buildings? And if you look at the overhead, there's 3 structures on the site, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do you I know that the third entry is the truck bays on the north side, because they're all the same size, 140, 140. And I think the other truck bay one is 7,000 feet, which is okay. Yeah, that's a total. Okay. I think I got this right here. See if you agree with me. Premise 18932 plus 18936 plus 33360 are all those bays on the north side.
Yeah, because that's around 21,000 roughly. I think that would be that.
Yeah,
right there,
21,140.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we have 8310, 1920, and 6190. So do you know where those 3 premise IDs are allocated?
I believe, yeah, because I'm mindful of the fact you're right. There's the 2 buildings, obviously, right? I know, and maybe there was some changes over the years, but you're right. I feel like it's probably could be more streamlined with the two premises.
I think the one I'm concerned about is premise ID 18937. Do you have an idea of what that is? Is that on your picture page 6? The building that's at the rear of the property.
Oh, I see the shed there. Yeah. I see what you're saying. You know what? I apologize. I didn't have really time to really delve into this, but I'll see if I can maybe kind of find quickly here if I can kind of see what that would equate to. 1947. You know what? I mean, the area would be close, but I don't want to make an assumption here. Let me see if I can quickly look here. 600. But I'm assuming the reasoning you're asking is because you believe there's something that can't be used or something is what your thought process.
Well, it's sort of like I've been working in this property for 25 years. So fairly familiar with it, and it's been something that keeps popping up.
1920 here. Let me see here. 218. Building steel frame metal. That might be it. Actually, I think you might be right. Yeah. So
Okay. So I think that in previous assessments, they've never taken it off, and it's an unheated, uninsulated building. And the answer I always get back from the assessors, they say, well, there's a gas meter outside. But do you have any notes on that particular building?
unfortunately, at the moment, I don't. I'm trying to find something. I can't find anything at the top of my head. You know, I mean, maybe this is a situation where we probably could do an inspection of this property at some point. Maybe we can get a better idea here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's okay. As long as I know what for the questions that we are looking at, the bays at 21,140 and the whatever you call it, the garage or auto dealer at 14,500.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, which is part plan and part mezzanine. And then the rear shed at 1920. Okay. And we're not disagreeing with those numbers. It's just the shed. Okay. Except I had the shed measurement at 1620. Unless that's a typo on our part.
You know, I tried to do. I think I earlier did just a very brief measurement. It came to somewhere around the 1900 range, but it could be just yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So going along to your model, which is page 9. Again, this is the same question as earlier. When you look at the model with 6 premise IDs, and then you look at the rent roll they provided, it actually shows that there's only 2 tenants.
Yeah, I think the total lease area they're indicating is what 5,900 plus 19,800. So roughly 35,700 is what they've indicated. Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. But their total square footage they've indicated is 35,500, right?
The actual, I see what you're saying on the actual.
Yeah, their total is 35,500.
Well, I mean, I guess I noticed on the mailer they've indicated they also say on the front page 37,000. So
yeah, okay. Well, I understand that. I'm just focused right now on the mailer. That the total area claimed, and then you're saying on page 13 they list 37,000. Okay.
yeah, so I'm just kind of I guess there's a lot of different numbers here, right? So
yeah, no, okay. Now on that, continuing on to the same vein, they're declaring 77,000 in net income on a site that's listed as being fully occupied. Now, did you consider what the paid rents were at any point?
I don't believe I personally looked at this you know, I guess one thing I'd like to know, I noticed they did indicate there's some partially owner occupied space as well. So I'm not sure why they've checked that off or what's going on with that, I guess. I'm a little confused, I guess, but maybe that was a typo, I guess, or
There's lots of mistakes on it.
yeah. So I guess that was my thought. Like, I mean, when I looked at the mailer, there's a lot of, it's hard to really decipher. So I guess you're right. We didn't put a lot of weight into it.
Yeah, okay, okay. But no matter how you read it, they, you know, whether you read the rent rolls or the statements, the income net potential income is significantly lower than what the model put on it, though, isn't it?
In terms of the net income, yeah. I mean, yeah, you know, I mean, I looked at this, like I said, yeah, I'll just go with that, with what they reported, but that's what they reported. Yes, I'm not gonna, yeah.
Okay. I guess you know, the difference for us is we looked at the older mailer. I didn't have this mailer. We didn't have this one. So things were a bit clearer for us. Okay, but this is all model, and I get the same questions I asked earlier in the cap rate, so I'm just assuming the answers are the same. What is this facility? You're calling it the assessor's calling it a storage warehouse, but it's not, is it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, I mean, I guess you could say like the detail kind of place is kind of used as storage in a sense, but I get it. You're right. It's being used for an auto dealership, used auto dealership, and the fact that the other portions being used for a detailing shop, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, an auto dealer, and the site was not built for cars, was it? The dealership, the place, it was built for motorcycles.
Yeah, that's because Harley Davidson was in there, I believe, correct? Right. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So page 8, the bottom of page 8 shows the adaptive changes they've made to house cars in there.
Correct,
Or
yeah.
wait, you were never in there when it was motorcycles, were you?
I've been past it, but I was never physically in the building when it was a Harley Davidson. No, so yeah, so they had to convert it.
But it's definitely not storage warehouse, right?
Yeah, what they're using it for is not for storage purposes. I'm mindful.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, do you have questions for the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Harling, despite this not being a warehouse, the warehouse parameters are used in the model?
Yeah, like I said, we are classifying as a storage warehouse, correct? Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld.
I have a question, sort of a question, statement, concern. The Act specifies that if information provided in the mailer that I guess I'm trying to remember the section, I think it was 56.3.2, if they provide information that differs from what was presented in the mailer as facts, means that there no reliance is placed on it. My question here is, I think that the mailer that the city got recently has not been filled out properly, and we have 20 years of history on it, and we were looking at some older information on this property. So just for the record, we are not presenting different information that's what's been provided in the past, but I think that this particular mailer has numerous errors on it, and is at odds with what was been presented in the past, and there's a reason, is that the owner passed away, and this was filled out by, it looks like an accountant, rather than the operator. So just when I present something differently, I don't think that section of the Act applies. That's what I'm trying to say. So when I was speaking earlier about 410 Oak Point, I said, there's one across the street that has an $8 rent, and that is this property. And that's one of the ones we were looking at because it's actually a market transaction. The space that they leased actually changed, and because the original area was just sorry, just give me 1 second. I'm just trying to reconcile everything here. Yeah, okay. The original area was only the former Harley Davidson dealership, but they took a bay in the other building, which is why the 19800 doesn't match, isn't for the full building. You see, I'm looking at assessor's page 15, and Easy Transit is occupying 19,800 out of the 21,140 that's in there. So one bay is now Match Auto's bay, and that's so Match Auto has one of those bays, and the old Harley dealership and the other Easy Transit have the other bays, the other however many bays, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 bays that they're operating. So it is fully leased. Now the shed at the rear is a shed. It is not heated. It is not insulated, and there is a heater unit in the building. There is a gas connection going to the site, but it's not insulated. There is a padlock on the gas meter, and we've had to show assessors that you have to go on the other side, the other street, to see the padlock. It hasn't been heated in ever. It was hoped and planned for it. They brought in a gas hookup, but when they put it into operation, they had no need to heat it because it was meant for parts storage for Peterbilt trucks, who's the same owner down the street, and he's had a lot of their fiberglass panels stored in this building, and it's not rented. It has no rental value. We're disregarding it. It'd be the sort of thing, it's an accessory use. If the tenant in the front had a need for it, it would likely just be added to their lease with no money changing hands. It's non-contributory accessory use. So the numbers we had, 14,547, the assessors at 14,500, and then 21,140, and we're on the same page. The 14,500, the assessors using, I don't know where they got that from, but we took our number from the actual lease, putting $8 on it, which is the paid rent. And the rent on the storage bays, we put at $3. And the reasoning there is that there is absolutely no finish. There's no office. There's only one of the bays has water service to it, and that's the one where they wash the trucks. The rest of them have nothing. So I think, yes, there's a toilet in that particular wash bay one. The rest aren't built out. It was used primarily in the past for storing semi-trailers, not trailers, the tractors. Again, one of their associated businesses was EBD Trucking, which is in Rosser now, and it was built so they could store their trucks in there conveniently nearby. When the Harley Davidson dealership went up, you can see from the picture, they lost the ability to maneuver semi-trailers into the lot anymore. They wouldn't fit. And that was the trade-off. They had the Harley Davidson dealership, which was a personal motivation that the owner wanted to have, and they lost the ability for any semi-trailer use. So it was just the tractors. And then they also had the Peterbilt dealership in Rosser, which is now in Winnipeg. So this was a storage area for them. This is storage quality. This is not a rentable property. Prior to his passing away, the owner had his car collection stored in there because he couldn't rent it to anybody else, and it was fine. He had a lockable garage. It is heated. It's just not good space. Now they've lost their access. You have to pick and choose what you want. It should be, do you want a motorcycle dealership or car dealership, or do you want truck base? And they thought they've tried for both, and that's what killed the truck base. I think it's probably a demolition consideration if there was another use they could find for it that would give them a return. So that's why we put a rent of $3 on it. The vacancy is based on looking at a variety of different rates. It's not just industrial. It's the automobile usage, which is obviously the use is kind of a retail industrial blend, and bearing in mind that they have had difficulty at renting any of these bays, and the Harley Davidson dealership closed up. I think we have an indication that the strength of this site, it's going to be subject to a lot of vacancy. And that's we use some I think I mentioned earlier, but looking at some blended rates for not just the area, but also the overall ones. I just wanted to look at this here, industrial vacant rate. The other thing impacting this neighborhood is that Inkster area was hit hard by migration to Centerport. And even though the site is located between Centerport and Inkster Industrial, it still created vacancies because the migration was to Centerport to get to a place where they had better access to the highways. And that was our reasoning for coming at the vacancy rate we did. The shortfall is higher because the taxes are higher. And you have to have your shortfall match the assessment of the property, the value of the property. The capitalization rate, I've got to tell you, I'm just reading this for the first time here. Okay. Oh, yes, that was the other factor. So page 2 shows how we calculated it. And you've already heard me mention that long-term vacancies in the past, the inability to accommodate large trucks anymore, the low quality level of the truck bay space. The other factor is that they're located directly, would that be east of them is a residential neighborhood, which limits your reuse. Because now you have to, like when Oak Point Highway was developed, the industrial were the first people in, and the houses were developed behind them. So first in, first come, first serve, as they say. They have their rights. But when you go to make a change, say you wanted to, the truck bays are obsolete, demolish them and rebuild, you now have to deal with the neighborhood opposition. And that's always been a difficulty in any city. And it's not just Winnipeg. Every city has the same problem on dealing with the balancing of the industrial. There may be setback issues, restrictions on what can be built and done there. So I think in an investor's mind, that's a very negative factor on capitalization. So that's why it's at 9%. I'm not sure if we'd go as high as 9, though, to tell you the truth. I think it's closer to about an 8.5, because it's still a good location and it has potential for upside. It's not performing now. So that means if you consider the basic premise in a cap rate, which is anticipation, it can do better. So that operates to lower the cap rate. So that's why I don't think it's as low as 9. You don't just always have a doom and gloom story. I would adjust that upwards a bit. One 8.5% is the value of 1,696,823, rounded to 1.7 million.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neufeld.
And last point to make, unfortunately, this is a property, and I think you've heard the reasons why the shed is still at the municipal board for prior years. And that's why the value is from the previous one. You know, it's for information purposes only because every year is new and treated individually. But that's the reason. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harlan, questions for Mr. Neufeld?
I think most of them answered, but I'm just kind of, I know you kind of alluded to some of these questions, but I thought I'd just have a couple. So, you know, I know you mentioned the storage bays, why you put the $3 rent on it. So like, that space isn't vacant at the moment, correct? It is being, like, it's tenanted out, I guess, currently, I guess.
Yeah, well, I was looking at, they had some users in there, some of the users. So when the owner had his car collection, he occupied 6 bays to the west, and then there were 6 bays to the east that were rented, and they were getting $3 a foot. I hadn't seen this statement that you had, and as I said, it's I don't know how to read this, but if you look at your page 15, so they're saying 19,800 getting 8,800. So 8,800.
533, I think.
Yeah, 533. But you notice that the property tax recovery was written in and stroked off. It's a gross lease, and I know it's a gross lease. And the person who filled this out, you know, there's no recovery of utilities or general administration recoveries. So it's 533 gross or semi-gross. There's when you look at the expenses on your page 13. You know, even the utilities, the R&M and insurance, the net rent we've applied at $3. It looks to me to be actual paid rent on a net basis.
You know, and again, I know this mailer's kind of, it's got a lot of issues. You know, it just seems like it's, you know, like you said, I know maybe previous years has filled it better. So that, you know, I guess they've indicated like a rental income of 212.
Right.
You know, I guess when you look at the two incomes for like the two tenants, the 2 units, if you add it up, it's like 263,400. So I'm just curious why are these, where the 212 come from? So
Yeah, on a gross basis, that's a good question, and that's another error on here. So we don't. No, I wouldn't. I don't know how to read this. And these are 2 separate tenants, but they have the same terms, which is, I don't think that's right either. They mark net, but they show you a gross statement. You know, there's so and then there was another thing I saw here. Partially owner occupied, it's not anymore. And so I'm guessing the person who filled this out might have been looking at something, not knowing what they're doing. The owner passed away in 2021, and his car collection was sold at auction, and that was the end of his occupancy. So I guess, and then the square footage you mentioned, they got 35.5 below, but 37,000 here.
okay, you know, that's Chris. You know, and I guess another quick question is have is like, I know you kind of mentioned this too again. So what was the reasoning? I just can't remember. I apologize, but you like, you were looking at for the vacancy. You were looking at like what was the reason you just didn't rely on an industrial vacancy? Like, what was the like?
Well, because it's a mix of different uses, and a car dealership has its own occupancy issues, right? And it has to do with the larger economic markets and the migration. This has had, yeah, since the building was built, has had, this is its fourth user. So initially it was the owner occupied motorcycle shop, and then it was leased out for used car sales, and this is the third tenant since Harley Davidson closed. So it's not, you know, you built a car dealership in an industrial neighborhood. That's just wrong. It doesn't work, right? You got to go to where the people are who buy cars.
Okay,
And
yeah, oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
I remember asking the owner, I said, why did you put the motorcycle dealership on Oak Point? And his answer was, well, a lot of truckers drive motorcycles. Okay. I don't think that worked out, but he was a great guy to deal with.
No, that's good, then. I appreciate it. Thank you for the questions, or answers, I should say, sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin, do you have questions for the applicant?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
And I have no questions. They've been asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions. So, Mr. Harling, summation?
No, I'm good on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Well, I think the major issue here is that regardless of who is to blame, the site was developed poorly, and it can't serve the two functions that it is trying to serve adequately. And they're at odds with each other. They fight for space that they need. And as a result, one or the other suffers. So if you put in a car dealership that clogs the yard with cars, and doesn't allow you to turn semi-trailers into their stalls, that kills that business. And whereas if you had semi-trailers all over the yard, you're not going to get people to come in and buy a car. So that's from the beginning, that was the problem with the value on this building. It was a creation, it was a personal desire, and but it didn't work. The shed at the back, it's unheated. For 20 years, I had to argue every year to get it off the roll, and it's still on the roll. So I guess I haven't been effective. I get it changed every year at the board of revision, but every year it comes back on, and I'm glad that the city wants to make work for me. It's nice of them, but I wish it were fixed permanently. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. That concludes item number 6. So I will remind everybody, we have a limited time now. We have 3 more items on the agenda. So if your presentations can be summarized where they can, that would be great. Mr. Harling, item 724-4055.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I made, the file number is 24-4055. The roll number is 0910476730. The address is 2125 Dougal Road, and the owner's number company 4477902 Manitoba Ltd. The 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1st, 2023 is $7,491,000. Flip and flow on the property description information. See there is 6 buildings on the roll. It is the actual year built range from 2004 to 2021 with effective year built of overall of 2005. Wall heights are 8 to 9 feet. The zoning is M3 manufacturing heavy. Land area is 264,911 square feet with a plan area of 69,150, which gives us a land plan area of 3.83, and we have a leasable area of 63,250. If you turn to page 2 of my brief, we'll see the request for information have been received. There are no recent sales of the property, and there are no leases in place. Okay, so if we turn to page 3 of my brief, you'll just see the subject property where it's located. So again, it's located on Dougal Road. You can kind of see the overall map of where it's located, and you can see it's just Plessis Road is just east of the subject, or west of the subject. Okay, so now just to get a more context of what we're dealing with here. So now we are dealing with a self-storage property here. So you can kind of see here, like obviously the different buildings here. So this is for, again, self-storage. So you can just see where it's located on page 4. If we turn to page 5, we'll just see the parcel outline of the subject property here. Now, if we turn to page 6, you can get some better ideas of the buildings here. So you can see the multiple buildings here on the roll. So here's this is on page 6. Page 6, you can see just some views of it. So page 7, there's just another photo of the different buildings, storage buildings, self-storage buildings on the roll here. Page 8 is just some further photos, and then at the bottom, page 8, we just have some street photos just showing the property itself. So this is coming from the west to, I guess, coming from the west to the east, just to show the property. So the top there, and then you can kind of see some of the units here in page 8. Page 9, you just see some further photos. You can see, obviously, I've shown the front of the building where the building where the office space is for the people to come in, and you can see the gate here for people to access the site. So this is essentially the property itself. So self-storage is pretty self-explanatory. You can kind of see here. So, all right. So if we turn to page 10 of my brief, you'll see some of the premises here we have on the roll here. So we have 5 here or 4 here. So we have 33,105 square feet, 645, 11,500, and 18,000 square feet for a total area of 63,250. One thing I'll just note is for the 33,105 square feet, that area that's actually unheated storage space and self-storage space. So I just want to be mindful of that. Henceforth, why the rate is much lower in that case. So now overall, we're using a blended rent of $7.25 a square foot, which gives us a potential rent of $458,681. Applying 1.5 for vacancy, which then gives us effective gross income of $451,801, from 3% for expenses and $4 as shortfall, which then gives us a net operating income of $434,452. And then lastly, we're applying a capitalization rate of 5.80%, which gives us the estimated value of $7,491,000. So if we turn to page 11, this is just some of my rent comparables. One thing I'll just kind of mention is this is a self-storage, property. So I'm mindful of the fact that, these don't rent out the same way as a property. So, you're not going to be, it's not the same. So it's hard to put a lot of reliance on the comparables based on that, because self-storage, as we know, people come in there, they are renting it out, but it's a different way, right? It's not the same way as a business renting it there. People just come there to rent their storage. So, I'll just be very brief with these, but so I'm mindful of the fact of, how we're valuing this, can be, it's a bit interesting, how it is. So I mean, the comparables range from June 1st, 2019 to March 1st, 2022, 3 to 5 years, 12,035 square feet to 31,987. Wall heights are 14 to 27 feet, and the rents in 1977 to 2009 for the effective year built, and then the rents in place are $6.24 to $13.50. So like I said, these are not typically, these units don't rent like the same way they would as a they don't rent like a tenant, right? It's not like you have a tenant coming in and renting the space for a business, right? So I'm mindful of the fact that, of that issue. So, and same thing with the cap rate, obviously these properties don't sell in the open market, so it's hard to derive cap rates from them, to derive a cap rate study or come up with cap rates, but there are obviously cap rates on them. So, outside sources and such. So, when it just comes to self-storage, we've been seeing a lot of self-storage units built across the city. They're actually, in my opinion, from what I've been seeing, they're very profitable. People, like I said, they keep getting built. I just saw a new one recently being built just off of Keniston and Terracon. It's building it. I know that's obviously a different part of the city, but you see them all over the city. So because people always need storage, there's always going to be things of that nature. People need to store things. So when you look at this compared to let's say a building like a storage warehouse or something that's being used for a business, I mean, this obviously is being used for business, but I think that there is, when it comes to the cap rate, obviously, we're looking at risk. So I think, based on the fact of how many you're seeing these being built and what they can generate, I think there is a lower risk involved with that. So that's kind of my thoughts on the cap rate. I guess one way to kind of just get an idea of, looking at the actual income of these, I put in a couple of mailers from a few years just to kind of show. Now, these are being generated on the gross income usage, obviously. So if on page 14, my brief, it's just the income expense mailer. So this is a gross income. I'm mindful of that. They've even checked it off. So, they're making $1 million in gross income on the most recent mailer. They also get some money from additional parking, as you can see some of the people coming in and parking, for long-term usage or for the winter and stuff like that. And then I put in just, previous mailers, it's other years of like the previous mailer for 2021, they were generating $827,000 in gross income. Prior year to that was $778,000. So year over year, they're clearly generating a good amount of income, in terms of grossing. I'm mindful there are expenses, obviously, but it just goes to show you year over year, these are profitable, these self-storage units. So, so that's just something I wanted to kind of point out, obviously. So, if we turn to page 24 of my brief, this is just a photo of the just kind of a floor plan of the self-storage unit. I will note, like, there was a recently built, they expanded a bit a few years ago, adding another unit. It's the furthest unit on the right of the building of the subject property of the property is a newer unit they built. Even if you look at the parcel, they do have some further land that they could build another one if they wanted to, I believe. I don't know what their plans are for that, but I'm just saying there is potential they could build another unit if they needed or wanted to. But yeah, overall, I have some further information just talking about self-storage units and how they're a big industry growing, just kind of as addenda information. I'm not gonna really go through it because obviously I know we're under a time crunch, so I don't think I'm gonna need to go into all that information, but yeah, so I think, mind you, I know we're assessing it on a model basis, but if you look at the actual income, I believe these are profitable. So, that being said, I think I'll just try to kind of leave it at that, kind of keep it more concise, and that's concluding the presentation. I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harling. Mr. Neufeld, questions for the assessor?
Yes. Just start with, you said something about having more land could do that. Now I'm looking at page 6. So the outline in orange shows the boundaries of the property, right?
That would be the parcel line, correct?
Yeah, and the land that's west of the double lane of trailer parking is the subject property, right?
Yes, correct.
Do you know why they can't use it?
You know what? I mean, I know there was some expropriation that happened a few years ago, but I don't know if that has any bearing on it, but I'm not sure.
Okay, but it's not being used, obviously, right?
No, correct. I'm aware of that. Yes.
Yeah, okay. You on the page 10, are these parameters?
Well, this is all, again, like the other properties, it's all model derived. Yes.
Right. I'm sorry. Model. So the model came up with storage rents, $10 heated and $5 unheated, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Based on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Did you bring any comparables?
In what kind of comparables do you mean in terms of like self-storage units or something?
Well, look, comparables to the subject. Like you've got some rents listed on page 11, but these aren't comparables because they're not the same property, are they?
No, I'm correct. Yeah, no, exactly. No, I'm mindful of that. Yeah. Well, like I said, these don't rent out, so I don't, so I mean, other than looking at the actual rates of what each unit maybe rents out for, I guess, right? But
And do you have any unheated space rentals?
I do not have any on that. No.
The model gave us a vacancy rate of 1.5%. Did you read what the statement the owner provided? I'm looking on page.
Yeah, it's I can already tell you it's yeah, it was 20%. So I'm mindful of that. And that's another thing I should have mentioned. Yes, I'm mindful of these we're going to have, there's vacancy issues will be higher with these because of, people coming and going constantly, right?
Yes, but is vacancy an issue with self-storage?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. A vacancy is always going to be, right? People coming in to rent, they may be short-term, long-term. So yeah, there's always going to be vacancy, correct? Yeah.
Okay, so you're not then familiar with the basic concept of self-storage and the requirement for vacancy?
I know the basics, but if you'd like to go.
Yeah, okay, no, it's fine. And I didn't expect that it's a specialized business. All of these buildings are how tall?
Roughly 8 to 9 feet, I believe.
Right. And so is there an adaptive use for them if there weren't self-storage?
I mean, no, they're obviously pretty specific use for people storing. I wouldn't be mindful of that. Yeah, I think it'd be difficult to maybe convert it. Yeah, so.
And the construction, do you know how these are built?
Well, essentially they're like, metal, steel walls, I guess, for the most part.
But it's a kit, right?
Well, yeah, yes, I'm mindful of the fact, yes, it's not like a, like almost like a precast, not the same idea. Yeah, I know what you mean though, yes, yeah.
And in terms of the structure of it, what do you know what the structure is? Like what sort of framing they have?
Other than, some kind of steel frame is all I could think of. I don't have the exact dimensions on me, or anything information, but
The unheated ones are single wall steel, right?
yeah, that sounds about right, yeah.
What's the lifespan expectancy of a structure like that?
I don't have that information, so yeah, so
Oh, okay. Is it less or more than a typically built industrial building, do you think?
I mean, again, that's an answer I don't think I can answer. I don't have the answer. I mean, you could, it's possible. Yeah, I'm not gonna, I don't have the answer.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Is life expectancy an issue to consider in a capitalization rate?
I guess it would be a possible, yeah, it would be a factor taking place, yeah.
Okay. And were you aware, and this has nothing to do with value because it's a different year, but that the municipal board on this was recently settled at 3.5 million for the last cycle?
You know what? I'm not going to go into that, so I'm not.
No, but my question is, do you think the market doubled in value?
Well, I think as I indicated, these are profitable. So yeah, but again, I'm not going to. Yeah, let's leave it at that. Yeah. So
Okay, and now you keep saying profitable. Your NOI is 434,000.
yeah,
Now on page, let's go to the recent one. What's the most recent one? 14? Page 14? Is
correct.
that
Wait.
it? Yeah. Their NOI, which includes business income, is 234,281.
Yeah, I'm mindful of that. Yeah.
So half the income that your model is generated, that they're making half that income. So why would somebody buy this for $7.5 million to earn a $234,000 a year, which indicates about 3% return as a cap? Do you think that's reasonable to expect that it would sell for that much with this sort of income?
You know what? I'm not going to speculate. Yeah. So
Oh, okay, but it doesn't look good though, does it?
yeah, that's fine. Yeah. No, I completely understand. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, questions for the assessor?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin.
The only question I had for the assessor was the rent comparables you have listed here. None of those are storage units, so right?
Yeah, those aren't. They're not self-storage. They'd be more of like a storage warehouses type. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I kind of alluded to. Yes, I'm mindful of the fact that these don't rent out like the same way, obviously. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions either. So, Mr. Neufeld?
Thanks. So first, let me tell you about the land issue, page 1. I have the same picture the assessor has showing the outlines of the property. When the Plessy overpass, whatever was constructed, they required temporary land from the subject property for hoarding because, it's for a diversion of the rail line while construction was going on. For payment for it, the city gave them a piece of land, that's unused on the west edge of the property. At the time, it seemed like a good deal because you got an acre of land. It wasn't bad compensation. The problem came when they tried to pave it. There's a pipeline underneath it, and they can't get permission to cross the pipeline with anything. No cars, nothing. So I guess it's a dog walk park. I don't know what it is, but that's why it hasn't been developed. So the owner's been working on it for years now since he got this property to be able to use it. But as the value goes, the way it's structured, I guess it's not a relevant factor, but except to say there is no room for expansion. It is where it is. That brings me to capitalization rates. The optimal vacancy rates, I should say. The optimal vacancy rate for self-storage is between 10 and 20%, which is higher than a typical property. The reason is business. You can't turn business away. You take it when it comes. You always need to have room for that seasonal rush for certain things. And they actually need, so when these units got developed, you'll notice there are multiple buildings. As one filled, another one was added to maintain amount of available space. That is the business model. There's no such thing as 1.5%, because if you had 1.5%, you're actually not going to make money. You make more money by having available space for the short termers who pay more. And where I'm getting all this information from is there's one company in the world now that I know of that specializes in self-storage, and that happens to be Colliers. We have a special valuation section for self-storage. They're headquartered in Ottawa, and the guy's name's Oliver, if that helps. They have developed the standard for valuation of self-storage, and in the brief I put in the standards and how you rate a self-storage, which came from our self-storage vision, and it's on page I was just reading it here. Oh, there we go, page 3. Okay, so this is right from Colliers. So you go through this rating system, and the subject comes between a B and a C rating. And the negatives are it's not the great location, and the construction is just the single, the steel siding, the steel panels. The good part, it's well looked after, and another bad part is the new development risk. The assessor said it. Just talked about a new one coming up, bigger. As the market fills, you reach saturation, you start to suffer. 10 years ago, Winnipeg was a prime market for self-storage because we were underutilized. And so it's a B/C rating on that basis, so not an A rating one. When the city first began doing assessments on self-storage, they did it on the cost approach, and I'm saying firsthand because we ended up convincing the city that wasn't the right way to go, because it wasn't equitable, because you would have an old building that was converted to self-storage that would be assessed at a few $100,000 versus a new one compete for the same dollar being assessed at millions. We came up through an agreement, an unwritten agreement, that every 2 years we have to remind them of, that we would try to apply a model to the site. And we called it the 5 and 3 and 8 rule. $5 for heated, 3 for unheated, 8% cap. And that's what the last incarnation of it. The earlier ones were less. And as one chair of a board of revision said, how do you told the assessor, you can't cap a building with thin steel walls that has a lifespan of 20 years, the same as you can a regular building. It just doesn't last that long. See, capitalization requires a building life, a minimum of 35 years for it to work. Otherwise, you can't cap it. That's how long you need a revenue stream. And I'm not making this up. This is the math on it. So if you have a short-term building like this, made from a kit, it costs $18 a square foot. Well, they used to for the unheated portions. They used to, but now we have to put sprinklers in them, so it's raised the price up to build. And so it's the statement, by the way, the assessor provided is all income attributed to it, and you can see that there's a very large salary portion, but that's because you need people to run this operation. You don't earn 981,000 in income without spending 261,000 in salaries. You know, it's not something you can ignore. So you see how much they made. Typical year, 234,000. When this was prepared, we on page 1, you'll see that our final number on our NOI is very similar to the actual net operating income. So we did what we always do. We look at the actual income, we work it backwards and put it into numbers that fit the assessment department's model. And every single year, this has been what ends up being relied on at the end. We just, you know, when this was written, the assessment for 2023 was 4 million, but recently we came to agreement at 3.5 million in the previous year. And that's just a feature of this business, is that you know the model was not designed for it in any way whatsoever. It's closer to a hotel than it is to an industrial property, at least in terms of your valuation methodology. So this is a completely artificial modeling system that is worked backwards from the actuals to fit the way the model thinks. Because there's absolutely no justification for an $11 rent anywhere. You should be just looking at the final number and then capping it. Now, the only thing I have to say about this is, you know, lots of real estate suffered badly in the COVID era. Self-storage wasn't one of them. They did wonderful. It was great for them. They were thrilled. And that, you know, they had a good year, a few years, but you know, now the worry is more players in the market. Will they be able to sustain it? I don't think the 8.75 is fair for this site, and I definitely want to adjust that. As a matter of fact, the other adjustment I would like to make is just revert to the actual income. Forget about this nonsense of modeling and working backwards. So they, under threat of penalty, told the city how much money they made, and it was 200. Oh, I see why he went that number. Okay, I get it. It was 234,281. I would like to change my value on that basis. The actual income, 234,281, capped at 7.5%, which is a value of 3,123,746. Around.
Can you repeat that, please, Mr.
Yes, I was going to. 3,123,746, rounded to 3,125, 3,125,000.
And the cap was?
7.5%.
Okay, thank you.
And honestly, I think we would look at a lower cap if it weren't for the market saturation. The property the assessor mentioned on Kennison is my client as well, and that property has been in the works for 2 years. On the reference date, it was in the works, and the people in this business all know each other. So it was known that we're going to have, and there were more that went up. So that would be the only concern. If we had without those projects, I think you would cap lower, at least in this business, and that's the only reason we would go to that number. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harling, questions?
You know what?
No. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Harling?
Oh, you know, like I said, I know we're in a time crunch, so I'm not gonna. I just have one quick, or just maybe one question. Let's try to keep it simple. So, you know, I know we've alluded to the income and stuff like that. Like, you know, you're looking at the mailers, Mr. Neufeld, and you kind of explained some of them. I just wonder if there's one particular one you could explain to me. I just couldn't seem to figure out. So I was looking at the mailer for the 2022 mailer. One of the expenses kind of jumped out at me, and I was just wondering if you could explain why. In 2021 and 2022, they indicated for the management fees, they were respectively 37,000 and 38,000. Yet for
Which,
2020
tell me your page number.
oh, I apologize. Yeah, I apologize. So if we go to pages 18
Right,
and then 2022. So they've indicated roughly 36,000 for 2020 and then 39,000 for 2021. And then now they're indicating in 2022 their property management fees are over $200,000. So I'm just curious, how did it increase by 160,000 in 1 year?
okay. Let me just look at that. Well, it's a very good question. I don't know the answer to it.
So I guess my question is, would that be a typical management fee for storage or like?
Well, I'm looking through all the entries here for wages and income, and just to see if there was like maybe they're changing their labeling on it, right? And I'm going back a couple of years. So in for example, on page 22, it was 36,000, but then they had professional fees of 70,000 and wages 224,000. I'm just looking at all of them combined, seeing if there's a consistency on that basis. And then there were, well, for 20, yeah, for those 2 years there are. Now I'm going to the last one. No, I don't understand. I don't have the answer to that.
I guess my only question is if it was consistent, like, if they were like, again, I don't, like I said,
Yeah.
would the NOI be normally higher if that was the case then, if it was a more consistent?
Yeah, well, the point might be that you should be are these one-time expenses, or are these a change in their accounting procedure, and I guess you know what, I would probably think what I think the appropriate thing to do is to look at some sort of a 3-year average then.
Yeah, like kind of stabilizing it, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, and I think that might show a higher value, and I don't think that would be inappropriate. I think that'd be right. I'm glad I'm in my office and not in the board.
yeah, it makes a lot.
Any additional questions, Mr. Harling?
No, that was, I'll just leave it at that one question though. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Okay,
I had a good point. I'm just thinking it over here too.
okay. We'll continue on. Mr. Carlin,
No questions. Thank you.
thank you very much. And Ms. Anderson,
I have no questions. Thank you.
thank you. Summation, Mr. Harling?
well, I guess, like, I mean, I'm just trying, I guess how would I surmise this? Like, I guess how I see it is like, I never understand the arguments Mr. Neufeld put, but I still think, these are very profitable still, and I guess when I look at that 1 year, I know it's a one-off, but, I still think there's a lot more value in this property than that. And I'm mindful of some of the things such as the vacancy and things of those natures, but, yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Well, I agreed with the assessor's statement on looking at that it looks like there's an anomaly that year. I agree with it. I'd like to make a change. I've just done the 3-year average on the NOI, and the 3-year NOI average is 275,800 using the same cap rate. that comes to a value of 3,677,337, rounded to 3,680, 3,680,000. Obviously, the number is nowhere near with the NOI of the city at over 400,000. And we have to try to be realistic and reasonable as possible. And I did mention earlier that they've had a better years recently, and the last year's assessment was finally corrected to 3.5 million. In this case, an increase is warranted to 3,680,000. I apologize for changing these numbers when we're on tight time, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay, so maybe we should just step back then. I know we're on tight time, but Mr. Carling, do you have questions about what Mr. Neufeld just said?
Yeah. Can you tell me what is the management fee you end up using then? I guess based on that.
I just averaged it out because I don't know the answer to that question, and I'm skeptical as you are. But without an answer, if it was appropriate or inappropriate, when you're faced with this, I just averaged out the 3 years NOI.
So I guess you didn't it wasn't stabilized, I guess, technically then in that case?
And that's what I'm wondering, if it weren't stabilized, if it were a management fee that was maybe in the books. It missed the expenses on the 1 year and hit the expenses on the opposite year. I'm sorry, on the next year. I mean, that happens a lot. It happens in my books, but
okay. Yeah, I didn't put my evidence, but I guess when I was stabilizing, I was getting a definitely higher number. So I don't know if there's just maybe
but you may have stabilized. I just took the 3-year average of the NOI, the claimed NOI.
Okay. You know what? In the spirit of trying to speed things up, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, thank you. So
Thank you, Mr. Carling. Mr. Carlin, questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson? Oh, you're on mute.
My apologies. Could I redirect to the assessor?
Sure.
Sure. I'm just wondering what your calculated NOI was.
Apologize. Well, I mean, see, the thing is, I'm using our cap rate, I guess, but I apologize. I'll try to be quick here. I don't want to take much more time here.
Oh, I thought you just had an NOI, a difference.
Just give me 2 seconds. I have something here. I apologize. I'll be very quick here.
Okay.
Where are you? There we go. I apologize. Just give me 2 seconds here. I believe if I 36,261 plus 5%. So sorry here. 15050 52. So I just try 52 504. Like I said, I am, if I stabilize it, I'm getting a net income of, like 398,000. So.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, you'll probably have questions about the assessor's methodology.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering how you got that. You just took the 1 year or adjusted?
Well, I was kind of looking at the past 2 cycles. It was roughly about 4.7% of the management fees they were getting of the total gross income. So I was using roughly about 5%. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
As I said, we're so lucky we're in our offices, because I'm going back in time even further. And I don't want to try the board's patience, but I can give you some numbers from previous years. So I don't think this one is off.
That's okay. You went farther back. That makes sense to me.
Well, because previous years that fee was 110, 130, and so it makes sense. It was just a blip in time, and maybe if we stabilize the NOI going back that far, I mean, one of these years was really, really low. So
Okay.
I think
Thank
I'm
you.
happy with it, what I said.
Okay, thank you. That clarified for me.
All right, I'm gonna close the arguments now on this item. We've gone a little overboard in terms of time. I appreciate we've had a good discussion on it though, so let's move on to item number 8, please. File number 24-4289. If we could go quickly, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, the file number is 24-4289. The roll number is 14093833690. The address is 10 Keenleyside Street, and the owner is Neptune Management Limited, Bert Polat. 2025 roll year base number of date of April 1st, 2023 is $5,367,000. If you look at the private description information below, we'll see this is a one-story building, 8 premises. The actual year built is 1974. We have an effective year built of 1999. Again, I'll just try to quick with this. The reason we have a higher effective year built is because there was a fire that occurred in this property in 2009 where I'd say more than half the building had to be essentially redone. So we adjusted the effective age based on the fact of the newer space that was done based on that fire back in 2009. So that's the reason for that. The wall heights are 22 feet. The zoning is M2 manufacturing general. Planned area is 153,983 square feet with a plan area of 49,920 square feet. This is a land to plan ratio of 3.80, and we have a leasable area of 49,920 square feet. I'll turn to page 2 of my brief. We'll just see the request for information have been received. There are no recent sales on the property. And these are actually the tenant leases, the leases we have in place in our system. So I won't go through all these, but you can kind of see there, the leases in place. Some of them are getting older, newer. If you go to page 3 of my brief, we'll see the subject location. It's just on Thomas Avenue, which is just south of Narren Avenue. Page 4 and 5 are just some photos of the outline of the property. So you can see here's just a basic flex type warehouse. It's a flex warehouse building. Photos continue on page 6 and 7. You can just see some photos, the parcel outline. As you can see, it's multi-tenanted unit building. Page 8 is just some street photos of the building from Thomas Avenue. Page 9 is just the parking lot in front of the building. And then the bottom page 9 is the parking lot, the back, or sorry, the back lane. So we go to page 10 of my brief, you'll see we have 8 premises. They range in size from 3,800 square feet to 11,520. Total area is 49,920 square feet of leasable area. We're using an overall blended rent of $7.32 a square foot, which gives us a potential rent of $365,724. 3% for vacancy, which gives us an effective gross income of $354,752. 2% for expenses and $4 for shortfall, which gives us an NOI of $338,119. And then lastly, we're applying an overall cap rate of 6.30%, which gives us the estimated value of $5,367,000. Turn to page 11 of my brief, you'll just see some of the rent comparables. So these are all similar. These are all flex warehouses, is some close in range to the subject. Leases range from October 5th, 2019 to February 1st, 2021. Leases range from 3 to 5 years. Areas are 2,900 to 12,035 square feet. The wall heights are 11 feet to 24 feet. Effective year built from 1961 to 2009. And the leases in place are $7.50 a square foot to $13.50. Going to page 12 of my brief, just some information with cap rates. So we're using a 6.3 cap rate. This building, it's not a bad location. It's a flex warehouse, so I think there's less risk involved in the storage warehouse. In terms of vacancy, it's not like a storage warehouse. If you have a single tenant, if they go vacant, you're going to lose all that income. Well, flex warehouse is a bit more, a little bit less risk involved. If one tenant leaves, it's a little bit more manageable. Plus, they're smaller units. So based on size, age, location, that would be another factor. Page 13 is just some municipal assessment act information. Pages 12 through 16 is just the actual reported income from the property. And pages 17 and 19 are just the leases in place. Page 21 of brief is just the quick floor plan of the property here, just to show the unit, just a basic, again, flex warehouse building. And I believe that should be good. I will conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, questions?
I have to run for 30 seconds. I apologize. I'll be right back.
We will wait.
Sorry, is it okay to go?
Okay, just before we begin, I note that here the key issues are vacancy, expenses, and cap. So if we can focus on those.
Yep. Okay. Um, what on the statement you provided on, I guess it's page your page 20, they are fully occupied, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So the statement that they've provided for income is based on 100% occupancy, correct?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay. And on that basis, the model is fairly close to the performance, is it not then?
Yes, I would agree, yes.
Yeah, okay. And the vacancy, is this the table, the model rate for this market region?
Yes, the vacancy would be for the market region, correct?
Okay. And capitalization rate, model driven?
Correct, model driven as well, yeah.
Okay. When the fire happened, do you know what sort of fire it was?
I don't have the specifics in Fort fire, no.
Okay. And I'm okay, that's those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, questions for the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions. So Mr. Neufeld.
Okay. So we're on the somewhat the same page on the income side of it, which is nice. We're using a higher vacancy, and that again is just a reflection of looking at actual vacancy rates in the Johnson report. which is a much more accurate database than what the city has. And in this case, we're looking at blended rates of the regional rate as well as the overall vacancy rate. And sorry, I just want to make sure yes. So the overall rate was 4.7, and Transcona is okay. No, this isn't Transcona. This is EK or Elmwood. No, EK. Yeah. There's no data on it. There's too few properties there, so we use the city number, the citywide number at rounded to 5% to reflect that. A shortfall calculation was done considering the actual taxes, which are the highest part of any shortfall is to pay the taxes while the place is empty. And of course, the site has non-recoverables, as demonstrated in the statements that were provided. All investment properties do, but those small differences make a difference in the NOI of about 338 down to 315, and our cap rate is I think it's fairly good for this sort of property. When I was asking the assessor about the fire, it was a chemical fire, tires and other things, and it burned for days. So I don't know if the site's been placed on the contaminated site list yet, but that's generally what happens with tire fires, because they release all sorts of noxious things. And I don't think we never researched that. But keenly, there it is. So no, it hasn't been placed on the list, but I think it's a concern. So, but way we calculated it was our optimal, the best rate for this is still a B class. It's not a flex as the assessor suggested, because it's too old to be a flex. 1974, they weren't making flex. A flex is a high ceiling height, standard bays. This is better than the other properties we've heard today. He's right on that aspect, that you do have some flexibility, but it's not built that way. But it's the issues on it were that does have it's not new. It's older, and although there was no adjustment for it, I would have adjusted it. I wouldn't have adjusted it as much for design and layout and quality and condition. I would have hit it on location. It's on a side street off Nairn. So it's not, it doesn't have a Nairn address for retail, and it's not that greatly accessible by semi-trailers through the neighborhood. So that's a detraction. 7.25, I think, is a very fair rate. So we're that no changes here. That's our request of value, and so I won't bother with summation. Just remember the concept of interest rates. You can't borrow money at less than 6% on April 1st, 2023, which means you can't pay your mortgage if you cap it low. You have to cap at a high enough rate so you can make money to pay your mortgage. And the model hasn't got any data that they're still relying on old data when the Bank of Canada rate was 0.50%. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Harling, questions for Mr. Neufeld?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, you indicated no summation for
Nope.
you.
No, it's fine.
Mr. Harling?
No summation from me, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes item number 8. Okay. Last item on the agenda, and I appreciate everybody being mindful of our time. So item number 9 is file number 24-3712. Mr. Harling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is entered is 24-3712. The roll number is 14093837600. The address is 975 Thomas Avenue, and the owner is 5 Kent Street, Manitoba Limited. The 2025 roll year based on reference date of April 1st, 2023 is $3,518,000. If you look below information on the property here, we can see it's a 1-story building. The actual and effective year builds are 2009. Wall heights are 22 feet. Zoning is M2 manufacturing general. The land area is 126,570 square feet, with a plan area of 21,010 square feet, which gives us a land plan area of 6.02. And then we have a leasable area of 20,985 square feet. If you look to page 2 of my brief, you'll see the request for information has been received. There are no recent sales. And if you look at the bottom of page 2, you'll just see these are the current subject leases in place. So I won't go through those, but the board can see if they need. In terms of where the location is, I don't think I'm going to kind of go quicker through this. This is actually just literally west of the previous property. So it's just located on Thomas Avenue, just next door. So if you go to page 4 and 5, you can see the property here. As you can see, it's just next door to the subject. So you can see the parcel outline. As you can see, page 6 here, another photo here. Page 7 just gives another further photo. There's more pictures on pages 8 and 9, just from different angles, just to show the property in its entirety. This is continued on page 10, and 11 is just the rear of the property. And then pages 12 and 13, some photos in the interior for some of the units I was able to find online. This continues on page 14, 15, and 16. So these are just some photos up inside the building I was able to find. I have not inspected the building though, but so I just want to note that. Okay, so we turn to page 17 of my brief. We're classing this as a flex warehouse. We have 3 premises. You can see here they range the size from 5,475 square feet to 8,250. The overall blended rent we're using is $9.04 a square foot. Potential rent is $189,902. We're allowing 3% for vacancy, which gives us an effective gross income of $184,205. 3% for expenses, as well as $4 to cost $4 a shortfall, which gives us a net income of $176,161. So this gives us, and we are applying a 5.60 cap rate. This gives us a capitalized value of $3,145,732. And I just will note, if you look under the capitalized value, you can see we are adding additional land value, which I will get to. So that's how we get the total value of $3,518,000. So I'll just focus on the income portion for now. So we go to page 18, my brief, just some comparables here. You can see they range from August 1st, 2019 to March 1st, 2021, 1 to 5 years, 3,000 to 10,000 square feet. Wall heights are 11 feet to 26 feet. Effective year bills range from 1973 to 2001. And the rents in place range from $8.92 to $10.95. Just to speak about the cap rate, so I'm mindful of the cap rate a bit lower, but again, this is a much newer building. As Mr. Neufeld alluded, this is more of a traditional newer flex warehouse due to the higher ceiling heights and wall heights and such. So the fact of the, again, location, age, those factors would be some of the factors would play into the lower cap rate. So that's the information around the cap rate. So just quickly, if we go to page now 19 of my brief, this is where we've added additional land value. So as you can see where the subject property is located here in the square here, there's been a line just kind of put here to show you what we've been adding as excess land value. So you can kind of see where the line is, and then the red dots, that's the area that we've added as excess land. To page 20 of my brief, this is the actual information regarding the property. So here's we're adding roughly 42,581 square feet of excess land. And we're using a rate of $8.75, which gives us $372,000. If we look at some of the comparables here for the excess land, you can see the first one here is on Stapleton. This is closest to the subject. It's 22,000 square feet, sold on January 8th, 2019 for $9 square foot. Comparable 2 is on 1474 Wall, 40,000 square feet, sold on May 25th, 2018 for $8.61. Comparable 3 is on Provencher Boulevard, 44,598 square feet, sold on October 22nd, 2019 for $748 a square foot. And then comparable 4 is at 911 Dual Road, 61,925 square feet, sold on October 7th, 2020 for $10.28 a square foot. So those would be the comparables used to support the excess land value we applied. Pages 21 22, 23, and 24 and 25 are just some photos of the comparable land sales used to derive that. So you can look at that at your leisure. I've already talked about the cap rate. Page 29 is the income expense mailer. This continues until pages 33. Yeah, 34 is just a floor plan of the area of the subject. You can just see here just 3 units, as you can see here. And then page 35 is just another floor plan photo. So that being said, that concludes the presentation, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurling. Mr. Neufeld, questions?
Yeah, the valuation then was done on the model that, I'm referring to page,
17?
is that where it is?
That's the, well, that's the
Yeah.
income workup, yeah.
Put it at the front. Yeah, page 17 is all from the model.
Correct, some all derived.
And the model then applies a rent to the units and then a land value. Is that land separately saleable?
Well, we look at it in the terms of, you know, we're basically how we're looking at it. It could be, if it were to be broken off, it could be, as far as I know. Like, I mean, unless there's some further information, but yes, that's how we have it. Yes, so
It can't be broke. It's on the same title though, right?
currently, yes, it's on the same tab, but we're saying there's additional land value, you know, that could be, you know, it has more expansion potential, if you will. So,
But right now they legally can't. They can't sell it off, can they? Without subdividing and paying dedication and getting access approval, et cetera, et cetera.
well, yeah, they'd have to request it to be, yes, separated. Yes, I might about that. Yes, yeah.
Okay. Now, why wouldn't the model consider, in cases like this, the modelers consider land rental, because then they don't have to change mixed methods of valuation. Like, you got the cost approach, or so you got the income approach, you got direct comparison mixed together. That doesn't work. But why not use a land rent to determine that value?
No, I don't have that information, so yeah.
Well, I want to point you to page 29. And I don't know if it's necessarily written properly, but you notice that the income has a storage rent of $10,500.
Can you point that out? Where about on here is that exactly?
The second entry on the rent revenue, storage rent.
Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
So they are getting rent for it, and it's in their statement. What would be wrong with applying a land rent then?
You know, I don't have the answer for that. So yeah.
No, I know that many times there are properties you bring forward and they have what's deemed to be excess or surplus land. In this case, it's not excess and surplus, is it? Because they're renting it.
I mean, in the current, yeah, it could be that, but I mean, there's nothing to say it couldn't still be technically excess over time, right? They could still subdivide, like you said, or, you know.
Well, that's hypothetical. We don't value hypotheticals, do we?
Oh, anyways, yeah, no, I understand your position though, yeah, so.
Okay. And then again, there was no vacancy noted on the page 33.
No, it is fully tenanted, so.
Okay. So their NOI has full 209,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And makes 209,000. The capitalization rate, same answers as before. That it's the model. It just fitted in there. Like you have one size for all property types, I take it.
Well, again, it's based on a number of factors. Again, age, size, location, those factors. Looking at their sales, but yes, yeah. So
Okay. Now I'm gonna tell you, I made a mistake on that last property about contamination, because I remembered it is. Do you know that the site is located on a landfill site?
you know what? Yes, actually, I was familiar with this. I've looked at the landfill report, yeah, and stuff like that. So I'm familiar
Okay.
with that.
And along the site, there are numerous methane vents coming up from the ground, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I'm aware of that.
Would that not be a consideration in the capitalization rate?
I guess, I understand when it comes to these types of situations, like contaminated land, I think that's a stigma, but I guess how I look at this is, this is clearly being used. Like, this is a newer building that was built on this land. So, I mean, I feel like some of that stigma wouldn't be there, because if it was that bad of a piece of land they couldn't use, why would they develop a newer building on it?
Well, aside from the stigma, what about the costs? Who pays the cost to monitor this every year?
Well, I'd assume it would be obviously the property owner. So yeah.
Right. And who paid the extra construction cost to lay down membranes so that the methane flows where it's supposed to flow?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I'm mindful. You're right. That would be another cost on
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question. Mr. Harling, you've split this up as you indicated, into an income approach and then the land value versus on a sales approach. Is this the same methodology that you've used in previous assessments, or is this a new methodology?
No, anytime we have like any type of surplus or excess land, we always would use it on a direct comparison approach. I understand Mr. Neufeld's argument about looking on a rate or rental space, but no, this is how we've done it with other properties with excess land or surplus land. It's the same methodology, yeah. So
Okay, so it's the same approach that's been
yes,
used.
correct. The same approach. Yeah, when we value the land, we're looking at the direct comparison. Correct. Yes.
Mhm.
Because I mean, I know land can rent, but typically it doesn't. You don't see too much land rent. They usually sell them open market. So, but yes, but I'm mindful of Mr. Neufeld's arguments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, thank you. Well, just for the record, there's lots of landlords that rent land in the city of Winnipeg, and all we have to know is where to look. This one rents the lot. There's their income on it, and they put it in their statements. So we have some vastly different numbers from the assessor, because we treated that as an income producing property the proper way. It has to go into the revenue stream. You don't split methods. It's grade 2 math. You don't mix addition with multiplication. They don't go in the same equation. In the appraisal world, that was the first lecture I ever got when I was being mentored, is I got yelled at for doing it. But it's not appropriate. And the only time you can do that is if you have a separate title you can actually mark it. You have to, you do not put separate values on land. That's house appraisal. That's a residential house appraisal, where someone comes along and says, well, you got a double car garage instead of a single, so we're adding $3,000 on it. That stuff, nothing is nonsense. It doesn't work that way. You keep your methods the same. So if you're using the income approach, put a land rent on it. There's lots out there. I do it all the time. If you're doing a direct comparison approach, you take a look at ratios and adjustments on how much land a property has, not this crazy addition. And I'm not using words, I don't think they're too inflammatory, and I don't mean anything by it. It's just a method of speaking. So and actually I found out that I was looking at our report, and it turns out that the land value was never added to ours, which it should have been. So my NOI is higher. You'll notice that 10,500 should have been added. So the net income should be 221,597 with land in. My NOI is now 190,244 on the site. No land adjustment, and the assessor's 176. But he's using a different method altogether. When it's capped, we're sticking at the 7%, and I agree with the assessor. This is the best property we've seen today. But I once in my career I've ever gone to 6% on an industrial cap. And I had the reasons I had for that. It was new build and they had an upside on their rent. It was going to increase $1 a year for the next 3 years. So of course you cap higher because there's more money going to be coming in. That's why you cap, I mean lower. I mean that's why you cap lower when there's an upside, and that's the real way to do it because you're chasing money, not attributes that don't count. Our 23 points are mostly all money driven points. If we have a condition issue, it's because we've got to spend money to fix it, not because it's bad condition. If it's a year issue, it's because we know older properties cost more to maintain. And everything relates to money, plain and simple, on a cap rate. And it has to relate directly. So we have assessed that, or we have estimated at 7%. The landfill site is the entire neighborhood behind there was originally dug up for, I think, clay for bricks. And then as the holes developed, it began to be used for landfill sites and the holes filled in. The entire street along there is producing methane gas. So the properties all need ventilation. It's a very widespread area. So what the assessor is saying isn't correct. There are lots of expenses associated with it. You got to monitor it every year. You have to build your building, spend more money to build it. You need to hire more engineers to get things approved. And if conservation comes and orders you to do something, you got to do it. Then if you want to redevelop, you have to start all over. There are some restrictive uses, obviously, but it's not something. It's not something that's great to have on an investment property. More uncertainty. It's about uncertainty, and again, it's money. Will I have a disruption in my cash flow? And if so, is it going to be an extra cost for the environmental issue, or losing a tenant and taking longer to get a new one? That's why this exists. We call it market resistance to detrimental conditions, not stigma, because that's what it is. The market resists bad sites. And I was asking in the earlier one on Keenly side, it's next door to this, same owners, same problem. The contaminated area is the entire area, and that's what but so we're our value still at 7% is 2,717,776, which is around to 2,718,000.
Thank you.
Oh, the reason there's one thing in here. This is less than last year, and there's a very good reason for it. When the fire happened and the neighbors adjoining property, insurance paid for one of the tenants to be relocated and a very lucrative rental rate. So this building had a vacancy, and it turned out was backfilled by an insurance claim and had a very good year. And well, you got to pay taxes if your building made more. And now that situation is over. That's why it's a decrease from the previous year more than anything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hurling.
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions either. So summation, Mr. Hurling.
No, I think I'll just say, just let the board rely on the evidence and make a decision based on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld.
I am often accused of using intemperate language. Crazy, not the greatest words, but the point is you don't mix methods. You don't add adjustments. That's amateur evaluation. And I'm not saying the assessor does it, the model does it. There's land rents out there. The site is rented. That's the best proof in the market. We included it in our value. That's one difference. The other is the cap rate, and there's no such thing as a rate in the neighborhood the assessor, the model has demonstrated. They're still missing the mark. They don't have any sales. They're relying on old data. We've heard this time and again from assessors who venture out and explain a little bit more about the model. And the act says reassess every 2 years. So when this world gets pummeled by interest rates, you go down in value. Next year, when the rates go back up, or sorry, go back down, values go back up, and then you readjust, you reassess. That's the way the system's designed to work. Values go up, values go down. We're in a down portion when it goes to investment rates, and it has to be recognized. And lastly, the contamination is a real issue that all properties face, and it's again the concept of uncertainty. That's what hurts. That's why it impacts value, and it's all relates to money. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you very much. So then that concludes item number 9. And then that we've now heard all items on our agenda, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much, Mr. Harling, and thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld, for your presentations and being mindful of our time today. We very much appreciate it.
Very much.
Thank you.